the everyday Hogwarts player. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 On the Road. In front of Harry at this moment were buildings that resembled factories in the Muggle world. Guys wearing black wizard robes like the man just now were standing on self-driving skateboards and heading in different directions. "Have you been here?" Ron looked suspicious. Harry's expression was too calm. "City? No, it's just that these things look like the Muggle factories I saw in the advertisements," said Harry disappointedly. "Okay, let's just leave it at that. But where are we going? This doesn't seem to be a residential area." Ron was skeptical. "Damn it." Harry pointed to 3 board skates in the corner that were connected to what were probably wires. His words, Ron couldn't wait to stand on one of the skateboards. That skateboard is actually controlled by the thoughts of the person standing on it. It's just a charging skateboard. The most amazing thing is that after we stood on it, the skateboard also became transparent. Ryan's magic is amazing. Harry kept looking at the skateboard under his feet and marveled. "Boys, we should go. The wizard who just opened the door to a room is almost done with his days and is coming out." Just as Harry and the others were immersed in their own world, spinning in circles on their skateboards, Ginny quickly reminded them. So the 3 of them rode on skateboards and sped along the gray cement road. On the other side, the crazy Muggle Ned, who had just touched the fish, was stunned. Because he had no means of transportation. All the used ones, spare ones, and spare ones are gone. This meant that he had to walk to the factories where he was responsible for distributing supplies. "I think I'll be off work at 4 today. This still acceptable to humans? I want to quit my job. 3 p.m. is late enough. I want to find someone who gets off work at 1 o'clock. Mad Muggle Ned complained as he walked towards the factory not far away, where the department responsible for distributing supplies was located. "Hey, woohoo!" Ron rushed along the road, passing directly through the black-robed wizards who were working. "Harry, Ginny, hurry up. Haven't you noticed that the skateboards under our feet have become virtual and can pass through matter?" After Ron had a lot of fun, he looked at Harry and Ginny, who seemed to be avoiding pedestrians in the back with an unsatisfied look. "Yes, Ron, don't you think this is a bit strange and joy? Okay, you 2 really don't know what's good," Ron muttered, and continued to slide forward. "Where is this?" Ron rubbed his eyes in surprise. After sliding for who knows how long, they had left the factory that Harry mentioned. Everything that appeared before their eyes made Ron understand Harry's feelings. Now it really feels a bit like Moon City. Particularly fresh to Harry. "Isn't this just an ordinary wizard village? Not much different from Hogsmeade," Ron said listlessly. Having grown up in a magical world, he was more aware of the wizarding elements in the scene when he saw it. As for those shops built against the crater, in Ron's opinion, they were not as interesting as the factory they had just visited. "Why don't we go back? It's much more interesting there," Ron said as he prepared to go back. "Wait, Ron, look." Ginny pointed to a wooden sign next to the cobblestone ground. It was shaped like an arrow and read, "Say your library is 1 mile away." Library. Ron perked up immediately. At this moment, he had already thought about finding the unique magic book in the library, returning to Hogwarts to cheat, being praised by the professor and admired by his classmates, becoming a prefect, joining the Ministry of Magic to take over his father's position in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and then becoming a secretary like his young Aunt Muriel. Ron, what are you thinking about?" Harry nudged Ron. "Aunt Muriel, it's nothing." Ron wiped the saliva that he had unconsciously dripped from his mouth. "I thought I heard Aunt Muriel's name." Ginny looked at Ron suspiciously awkwardly, so, led by Ron, the 3 of them walked in the direction marked by the sign. "Their library. It seems that this city is indeed related to Ilvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." On the way to the library, Harry, who couldn't be affectionate with Ginny because of Ron, started to find topics to talk about. What? Unlike Harry, Ron was looking at the shops one by one. He found that although these shops had wizarding elements and were not novel, the things they sold were very unusual. Strange parts could only be seen when his father repaired cars and bought things from the Muggle world. There were also some finished products that he had looked similar to those in Riddle's book, but they were obviously different. And these differences are obviously due to magic. If Ron had been to Diagon Alley today, he would have found that the things in these shops were similar to those seen on the streets today, simply ahead of the curve. I have only one feeling, that is, they are so idle. Don't they have jobs? Ginny said as she looked at the wizards who were obviously strolling around the street, using all kinds of strange means of transportation. Even in those shops, there were no owners watching over the shops. Maybe they work at night and rest during the day. Harry said after thinking for a moment. This seemed likely to him. This was, after all, the moon. Perhaps it is because of the special environment of the moon that the wizards living there have different biological clocks. Ginny agreed at that. Harry, what did you just say? Ron asked after he came to his senses. After Harry repeated it, I always thought Hogwarts was the best magic school in the world. But you see, Alvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry has Moon City. And Hogwarts, said Ron. You forgot that some of the wizards who founded Atlantis and were called sages graduated from Hogwarts, and most of them were Ravenclaws. Harry said proudly. Chapter 377 Hidden Monster. Ron has always been a very emotional person. Even Harry, who has been with him for a long time and has been with him like a conjoined twin, cannot guarantee that he can calm his emotions 100%. But Ginny knew her brother well, just as she knew that Ron had a picture of Aunt Muriel under his pillow. Alvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was founded by the descendants of Slytherin, one of the founders of our school. Although Ginny's words were simple, they hit Ron's sweet spot just right. Merlin's chest hair. Why didn't I think of that? According to seniority, Moon City is just the grandson of Hogwarts. Ron regained his spirit in the face of Harry's puzzled gaze, while Ginny, who was standing beside him, covered her mouth and laughed. Harry, what is that? That monster seems to be able to see us. Ron poked Harry on the way forward. Harry looked in the direction Ron said. It should be a shop similar to the Fantastic Beasts shop in Diagon Alley. There was no one in the store either, and the boss and employees seemed to have gone for a stroll somewhere. In the window, a very tall animal with silver-white hair was staring at them viciously. The animal looked very strange, and it could be said that there was no creature similar to it in the Muggle world. But if I have to say, the only one that came close was the smaller bear. It can actually see us. Ginny gave it a finger, and the creature slapped the window viciously. That's a Hidebaloo, a powerful, dangerous magical creature that's almost impossible to kill. If its attack power wasn't very strong, I even suspect that it would make it so that no wizard in the magical community would dare to travel alone. Harry was very surprised and slowly controlled the skateboard to stop not far from the store. Really? Is it that dangerous? Also, what's his connection with the invisible beast? They all have silver-white fur. Ron was skeptical. It wasn't that he didn't trust Harry, but he had privately learned about magical biology since he lied about Ravenclaw having phoenixes and invisible beasts in his first year. He had never heard of the name Hidden Beast. This kind of creature must not be in the book, or there is no specific picture with long silver-white hair. He even knew a secret about invisible beasts. Invisible beasts with blue eyes have a premonition that can detect danger in advance of Chadwick and Weber Boot, but was ultimately defeated by Isolde Sayer and Pucky William. Defeat, not kill. Isolde Sayer is a powerful witch, and Pucky, as a subspecies of goblins, also possesses powerful magic. But even so, they can only defeat it instead of killing it. Harry sighed. So what abilities does it have? Ron asked immediately. He looked cautiously at the hidden monster in the window, and felt a lingering fear when he thought that he was about to imitate Ginny and even go a step further and make a face at it. The hidden monster is a nocturnal monster that lives in the deep woods and feeds on humanoid creatures. It can change its shape, allowing it to hide behind almost any object, and can hide itself perfectly when encountering predators or prey. Oh, and it can turn invisible, just like the invisible beast, said Harry. That's it. Ron looked incredulous. Yes, that's it. Its ability to change its shape may sound simple at first glance, but in actual combat, it means it can dodge any of your spells by changing its shape. What's more, just like its name, it usually attacks you unexpectedly outside your field of vision. Wonder it can see us. It's an expert at hiding, said Harry, knocking on the window. The hidden monster in the window bared its teeth, scaring Ron behind Harry. What the hell does this guy have to do with the invisible beast? Frightened Ron couldn't help but swear. It and the invisible beast. Then let me tell you a story. Trafficked to the New World to use in making an invisibility cloak. But the invisible beast escaped from the ship and hybridized with a stowaway ghoul. Their offspring fled into the forests of Massachusetts after the ship docked, and they still infest the area in large numbers today. Harry waved his hand. Well? Ghouls and invisible beasts aren't dangerous creatures, they're all very docile. What about the hidden monster? Ron couldn't help but ask. There was a ghoul, and he knew a lot about ghouls and invisible beasts. He even dared to call himself an expert on them. Phineas Fletch is a jerk who enjoys being cruel to the animals he controls. The original parents of the Hideaway, the ghoul and the invisible beast, were all abused by Fletch. I guess the Hideaway inherited its parents' hatred for wizards. Harry sighed. Harry, where did you see this? Ron looked puzzled. The founding of Alvermorny School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the meeting of Iseult and her husband, William Pucky, and their son Chadwick and Boot are all inseparable from the hidden monster. You should have known it when I told you the first story. Harry pouted. The instructions were in their heads, but Ron knew nothing adopted about them. Hey, there's just too much content. Ron scratched the back of his head embarrassingly. Degrees 1 to 7 into brains like this instruction manual. That means I don't have to read books. I still have time to finish my masterpiece while I'm in school. Maybe before I graduate, I'll become a great writer like Skywalker. Ron's eyes sparkled with hope. Shut up, Ron. We still have to go to the library. Ginny, who couldn't get a word in and felt like a light bulb, couldn't help but say. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378, Ryan's Recommendation. Okay, but there must be some magic in this window. Look, until now, this invisible monster has not become invisible in front of us. Ron touched the window carefully before leaving. If Ginny hadn't pulled him away, he would probably have stayed here for a while, or even gone in to take a look. Because according to Ron, there's a hidden monster in the window, and there might be a Thunderbird inside. As Ron cursed, the three continued walking towards the library. On the other side, Ryan in the library narrowed his eyes. He hadn't imagined that there were creatures that could see the secret magic he had cast on Harry and the others. Even if this magic was just created on a whim before landing on the moon. There's indeed no wizard who can find Harry and the others, Ryan thought. Dangerous requires specialized knowledge, can only be dealt with by skilled wizards. Category: the Phoenix is also a member of XXXX. The Phoenix is only classified as 4X because of its low offensiveness. Magical creatures themselves possess powers that wizards cannot reach, just like the immortality of the Phoenix. The ability of the invisible monster to hide itself is something that wizards can only dream of. For example, the Niffler is classified as XXX, can be dealt with by capable wizards. Grindelwald, a demigod wizard, suffered losses at the hands of it. Ryan suddenly thought that if he didn't have a panel, imitating the abilities of magical creatures would be a way out. Most of the magical creatures are originally the result of wizards losing control and wisdom and degenerating into creatures. How can it be easy to achieve one by giving up the omnipotent power? Ryan. Ron's voice came into Ryan's heart from not far away. Ryan looked up and saw Ron and the others looking at him in surprise. Oh, you are here. Ryan waved his wand, and Ron and the others' transparent bodies immediately returned to their original state. Drink, drink, drink. Rum covered his neck. He had just gotten used to not breathing, and his restored respiratory organs and mouth that could open and close made him feel particularly uncomfortable. The same went for Harry and the others, but unlike Ron, they didn't deliberately make a habit of not breathing, so it was okay. We won't be discovered, will we? Ron said in a low voice after he recovered. Unlike Harry, he had never experienced being ignored by everyone in such a situation. No, we are just like Ryan normally, no one can find us. Harry said confidently, hugged each other but in front of someone she didn't know very well. Ryan, you're not really here. Harry looked at Ryan suspiciously. After talking about Ryan's many trainings, we can see from Snape's version of the vampire and his mother's version of the vampire bride that Ryan is actually a very sinister guy. Maybe you can just pretend I'm not here. Ryan's mouth curled up. The uneasy looks on Harry's faces distracted him from the slight unhappiness he was feeling at having his magic discovered by a hidden monster. Aren't you going to read a book? It's already 4 o'clock. I have to go back before dinner. I don't know when you will come here next time. Ryan reminded. Harry knows this best. Harry, after hearing this, Just like he had never been back to Atlantis since he had been there last school year o'clock. Why aren't we hungry? Ron thought about his stomach. You know, he didn't have lunch. On normal days, he would have fainted from hunger, but today he was very energetic during the journey. My magic is not that simple. It also allows you not to eat. If it's not lifted in time, you will become real ghosts. Ryan said with a smirk, looking at Ron, whose face turned pale as he spoke. You're kidding me. Ron was sweating. Maybe. Ryan shrugged. Have 1 hour and 55 minutes. Ryan looked at his watch. Wait. Harry stopped Ginny, who was about to find a book to read. Leon, do you have any book recommendations that are suitable for us and can't be found on Earth? Clever, you can take a look at this book, How to Forge a Strong Heart. Just as the words fell, a book that seemed to be made of flesh and blood and kept beating appeared in Ryan's hands. It itself allows you to tap into the magic that resides in your heart. This also contains the secret of how James Stewart, a muggle, could live to be over 100 years old in good health. Ryan said, while Harry pursed his lips as he took the strange book. What about me? Ginny asked curiously. You. The Book of the Bat, it catalogues in detail the magical powers wizards have ascribed to bats. You can choose the part that suits you best. After all, you are best at the bat spell, and turn it into a monster with flapping wings to attack others. Ryan's words made Ginny's indifferent face suddenly show astonishment. What's wrong with you? Ginny couldn't help but take a few steps back. A huge bat flew towards her and finally turned into a black book that seemed to be made of bat skin. I don't know everything, I only know what I know. Ryan smiled mysteriously. Well, Ryan, after all, I am fit to watch. Ron faltered and looked at Ryan. This one, the magic of emotions. It's not about manipulating other people's emotions. On the contrary, it teaches you how to attach your own unnecessary emotions to magic so that it produces unexpected effects. This is very suitable for impulsive guys who are easily controlled by momentary feelings. Ryan waved his hand, and an ordinary-looking book floated in front of Ron. How come mine is so ordinary? I'm not impulsive. Ron muttered to himself as he opened the book and began to read eagerly. Not bad, worthy of being Ravenclaw. Ryan looked at the three people who were reading books attentively and nodded. Harry even conjured up a stack of parchment, and the contents of the book began to split apart as if alive, jumping one by one onto the parchment in his hand. Now, after joining Ravenclaw, Ron and his friends have been infected by the atmosphere of the college. If it were the three people from the original world line, they wouldn't have the patience to read the book. Harry didn't have the skill to copy books thanks to classmate 20170102931457442 for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 379 Dumbledore's Loss of Control. While Harry and his two friends were studying the magic book hard, on the ground, in London's Nocturne Alley, a wizard who was out of place on this street appeared. Obviously, he was not here to do business or buy anything. The surrounding shops suddenly closed their doors, and some ragged wizards who only appear during the day walked out of the dark doorways just as they were about to approach the man without being noticed. A bell rang. Those wizards disappeared without a trace like the receding tide. A man with greasy hair and a 100 body appeared in a corner that they couldn't see, a man with messy ginger hair and legs spread out, with a look as if he had discovered some important news. Silently disapparated and disappeared on the spot. Oh, Borgin, when did you become the boss of this street? The man with a goatee gave a stiff smile. Just like you can become the headmaster of Durmstrang, you should know that you were a Death Eater in Azkaban more than 10 years ago. Burke. By taking over the downstream market of Skywalker Alchemy Workshop, he naturally became the boss of this street after some dangerous dark wizards inexplicably disappeared. A former Death Eater, the headmaster of a foreign school, what a nobody. You know, even when Fudge was Minister of Magic, it was he who caused Fudge to appear naked outside London. A waste of my time. I make tens of millions every minute. Borgin and Burke shouted in annoyance. 10 million copper nuts, please. Karkaroff curled his lips. Borgin, I have to remind you, the position of headmaster of Durmstrang is not something I dare to usurp. Speaking. Dark Lord? Karkaroff, why didn't you tell me this? Has Voldemort forgive your betrayal? A deep voice sounded from behind Karkaroff. It's Snape. Dumbledore. Can I leave? Borgin and Burke said tremblingly, his already hunched figure bending even further imperceptibly. Dumbledore winked, and the ones that were vaguely pointed at Borgin turned around. In a moment Borgin was back in the shop, shutting the door tightly behind him, Facing Dumbledore and others who surrounded him, Igor Karkaroff's eyes went blank, but he still looked at Snape calmly. Severus, Voldemort does not deserve to be called the Dark Lord. Oh, who is it? Did Voldemort talk about peace some time ago? The appearance of Karkaroff now is probably related to this. Furthermore, Karkaroff was so calm when facing him, his former colleague Snape, and Moody who had put him in Azkaban. This is very unlike Karkaroff. You know, Karkaroff has always been a tough guy. Even when he was still a Death Eater, he couldn't remain so calm in the face of him. Obviously, there is a force behind Karkaroff that he believes is powerful enough to compete with him, and someone who can give him ideological guidance and change his character. In Dumbledore's eyes, there is only the young Voldemort and that man. But that person will not show up, absolutely not. Could it be that group, the group of wizards who claim to be from the moon? At an angle that no one else noticed, the corners of Dumbledore's mouth rose slightly. He himself did not realize that he would become more excited when facing pressure. On the other side, Karkaroff's mellow, sweet voice sounded. Who else could it be? Who else is worthy of it? Who else can do it except him? If you want to suffer less, don't go around in circles. Moody taped his artificial leg. My master said that Dumbledore would not hurt me. Karkaroff said in the face of Moody's surprised look. Reverence, this was definitely not a fake expression. Moody, Snape, and Dumbledore, who were good at reading people's expressions, looked at each other. There is actually someone who can make the cowardly Karkaroff like this. Dumbledore, you should be very familiar with him. My master's name is known to everyone in the entire wizarding world. Karkaroff puffed out his chest. Gatler Grindelwald. Moody, the oldest wizard who had experienced that era, blurred out. This is impossible. Dumbledore was so surprised that his voice broke. Dumbledore couldn't believe it. He could still feel Grindelwald's magic flowing through his body. Before their final battle, the blood alliance between them had already been sublimated, making them mutually dependent. Although the mutual repulsion of their hearts prevents them from communicating with each other, solitary prison he built until he died. The master said, when you see Albus, tell him this, and he will definitely understand. Karkaroff is here for the invisibility cloak, and it will be useful, Karkaroff said confidently. He really said that. Dumbledore's pupils suddenly contracted. Magical power as vast as a mountain or an ocean turned into invisible pressure and emerged towards Karkaroff. It's true. Karkaroff fell to his knees. Did Dumbledore lose his temper like this? In Dumbledore's mind, he gradually recalled that summer. In their exploration of the Deathly Hallows, they will rely on the Elder One to conquer the wizarding world, use the Resurrection Stone to build an army of inferi to rule the Muggle world, and the invisibility cloak to protect his weak spot. Ariana, where is Gatler? Dumbledore suppressed his anxiety and seemed to have regained his composure. Even the magical pressure against Karkaroff disappeared. Durmstrang. Karkaroff gasped. Chapter 380 Grindelwald's Gift. The name Grindelwald means that for wizards who have come into contact with him, he is a more dangerous guy than Voldemort. His danger does not lie in his military prowess, but it lies in his thoughts and eloquence. His ideas would shake the foundation of wizarding society, the law of protection. His eloquence earned him many followers. Moody is one such wizard who knows Grindelwald well. He had lived through that era. Albus. Be careful, this might be a trap. Moody couldn't help but step forward with his artificial leg towards Dumbledore. How dare you speculate about my master with your dirty heart? Karkaroff was so that his face turned red and his neck became thick. You see, because of Grindelwald, he dared to talk to me like this. You can't tell from here, began Moody hastily, but Dumbledore interrupted him before he could finish. I'm sure of it. Dumbledore waved his hand. My master told me to come directly to Diagon Alley and openly announce the news of my search for a permanent invisibility cloak. Karkaroff glared at Moody, then said respectfully to Dumbledore, he said you would come. I just need to tell you what I just said, and you will understand. Oh, right. This is a gift from the master. Karkaroff took out a dragon skin bag from his arms that was rainbow-colored under the sun. At first glance, you could tell that this was the skin of the Australian white-eye, one of the most beautiful fire dragons. He turned the pocket opening downwards and shook it gently, and then there was the sound of something falling to the ground. It was a pile of corpses, and you could see from the two corpses on the top that they had both been hunchbacked. The Carrows! Exclaimed Snape. Carlo's siblings were all young faces that he was familiar with. Who are they? DJ asked cautiously. They are all my students, They graduated just a few years ago. I discovered new faces of Voldemort's men some time ago. I didn't expect it to be them." Snape shook his head. The master said that this was all to avoid affecting his plans. "I'm just helping you solve your problem," Karkaroff said to Dumbledore hurriedly. By the way, Dumbledore actually felt skeptical about this. He understood that Grindelwald had done this for him, but this was more of a hindrance than a help. Now they are more eager for Voldemort to be resurrected so that they can truly kill him. He also thought that Grindelwald was too harsh purpose on these children who had just joined the Death Eaters and were just about to do evil but had not yet had the chance to do so. Eaters are all from privileged backgrounds, are opposed to your ideas, and hate Muggles and Muggle-born wizards. They are also prepared to kill those who are unworthy of being wizards and dirty Muggles in their eyes. The master said that if you do it, most of these young people won't even have to go to jail, and with their influence. Then, seeing that Dumbledore's face was not right, Karkaroff hurriedly explained for his master, Grindelwald. "Did he ask you to say these words to me, did he?" Dumbledore sighed in boredom. "Hey, this bastard did a good job. If these little bastards were alive, 100 years after us, this society would be the same as before." Moody smiled slightly, but with his face, he looked particularly terrifying. "Yes, but these are indeed the master's original words. In order to avoid killing innocent people, the master has even used reflexology on them. They, in short, are not good people." Karkaroff still ignored everyone except Dumbledore and only replied to Dumbledore, "Neither? They are all my students," Snape said coldly. "You didn't teach them well, Severus. As a professor, and head of Slytherin, you only know how to take sides. But as for the moral cultivation in your college, it can be said that there is none," Karkaroff said confidently. "Well, we should talk somewhere else." Dumbledore glanced at number 13B nocturnally behind him. Obviously, no wizard had come near here until now, and it was only Borgin and Burke and his men who were helping. It's not that Dumbledore and the others can't do it. Rather, they came in too much of a hurry. And in their plan, they had not anticipated the sudden appearance of so many corpses. Even if Voldemort really appeared here, with a purpose of peace, he would not spend too much time here with Dumbledore and others. "You have the final say," Karkaroff agreed. He waved his wand and the pile of bodies on the ground flew back into the bag. So, Karkaroff followed Dumbledore and his followers and appeared to a manor. The crackling sound not only started leading the white peacock on the hedge and made it fly away, but also made a pale man with long light golden hair hurriedly walk towards the place where the sound came from. "Dumbledore. You, and, is there anything you need from me?" The man was Lucius Malfoy. His eyes quickly swept over Karkaroff, who was obviously out of tune with them, but he looked as if he didn't notice anything. "All right, Lucius. I would like to speak on behalf of my master, Getter Grindelwald, and your master, the great Albus Dumbledore." Karkaroff stepped forward, then. "I need to." Lucius Malfoy glanced at Dumbledore hesitantly. "By the way, you still need to deal with these." Karkaroff dumped the corpses on the gravel ground again with a malicious look. Lucius Malfoy's face turned pale. He knew all these people, and was even close to them. After all, the relationship between purebloods was closer than others thought. At this moment, in his mind, he couldn't help wondering whether Dumbledore and Grindelwald had joined forces to make an example of someone else. "Lucius, help us find a room. We do have something to talk to Karkaroff." Dumbledore sighed again. Everything today was too exciting for him. What did Grindelwald mean? Did he find the resurrection stone? Does this mean that he could see Ariana in the next second if he wanted? Also, the plan that had been prepared long ago, to lay the long game, appease Voldemort, and then kill him after he was resurrected, also unexpectedly failed. But one thing is clear, next year's Triwizard Tournament is Giddler's work. What is this for? Okay. Don't bother. The house elves will take care of the bodies, Lucius Malfoy said calmly, and began to lead the way. Chapter 381. Time is up. Oops. In the Sayre library, Ryan blinked and raised his fist to knock his forehead in distress. What's wrong? Harry, who had already copied the entire book onto parchment, looked up and asked. Voldemort is dead again. Ryan raised his eyebrows and looked at Harry's scar with an undisguised gaze. Again. It's true that you knew all my previous dreams. How could I hide the fact that I got up in the middle of the night from you? But why? Harry seemed a little flustered for a moment and rubbed his forehead subconsciously. If the usual routine were followed, Voldemort's death would put him into that strange state again. This made him ignore the abnormalities between Ron and Ginny beside him. They seemed to turn a deaf ear to Ryan's questions. It seems that the connection between you and Voldemort can be weakened by physical distance. Ryan clenched his right fist and hammered it into his palm, pretending to have suddenly realized something. Then you can take Voldemort to the moon and kill him. The Horcrux won't work. Harry was very excited and patted the table. After he himself became a powerful wizard, he deeply understood the value of Ryan's daily magic. In his opinion, in a head-on confrontation, Voldemort might not even be Ryan's opponent. It would be great if Ryan was really willing to take action. The distance only weakens the signal between you and him. Even if you're on the moon, you're still his Horcrux. The immortality brought to him by the Horcrux is not similar to the relationship between the base station and the signal. It is closer to a vague concept, cause and effect. As long as one of his Horcruxes still exists in the world, he still has the possibility of being resurrected as the main soul. Ryan stretched out his right index finger and waved it, indicating that Harry's idea was not very realistic. Is this okay? Harry quickly looked at Ron and the others. Ron and the others behaved very strangely. They were immersed in the world of books as if possessed and turned a deaf ear to the outside world. Don't look at me. This is their instinct, the instinct to strengthen themselves. The contents of these two books are to them what your love at first sight with Ginny was to them. Won't be in heat with a dead object. Looking at Harry's puzzled eyes, Ryan shrugged. Harry smiled awkwardly when he heard Ryan's wonderful metaphor. Wait? You. We are on the moon. How can you sense what's happening on Earth? Harry couldn't help but take a few steps back. If that's the case, if Ryan wanted to, Ryan would be able to hear him even if he said something bad about him in Privet Drive. And everything that happened to them in Moon City just now. He suddenly understood why he had been so unlucky recently. The news of his marriage spread so quickly, maybe Ryan was behind it. You know, Rita Skeeter Kate Lewinster should also be one of Ryan's girlfriends. He had seen something was wrong with their relationship since the trip to Atlantis. Harry couldn't help but shake his head. It was dangerous to continue thinking like this. Ryan might see something the way I was thinking, that if I mastered the content of the book you recommended to me, would I become a wizard killer like the Hidden One? Harry shook his head like a rattle and denied it quickly. He didn't dare to ask Ryan about his perception range anymore, so he had to find a topic to talk about. Wizard killer? Hidden monster? Why did you mention it? Anything. Harry and his friends were staying in front of a store because of the invisibility monster, discussing something. How could he know? He's not a voyeur. As a reliable young man from the 21st century, Ryan thought so. Aren't ordinary wizards all weak and frail? Their spells can be avoided as long as you move flexibly. Wizards, its ever-changing shapes make it impossible for wizards' spells to hide it. Also, it has the natural sneak ability to attack from the blind spots of living creatures, which makes it impossible for wizards to chant spells and react in time. If it's not a wizard killer, who is it? After I strengthen my physique through the method of forging a strong heart, combined with my reaction ability, I might be able to defeat a wizard one-on-one without relying on magic. Harry said confidently. Ryan couldn't help but make a strange expression. Isn't this a case of great minds thinking alike? Ryan thought so too when he first came here. However, Isolde Sayre is really amazing. She can come up with such powerful magic. Harry continued to sigh. Wait, Harry, didn't Ryan just say that this book was written by her husband James Stewart? Ron, who woke up early because he had the least talent and the most unstable personality among the three people present, took over the conversation. You must have remembered it wrongly. Ryan said that this book contains the secret to living healthily to over 100 years old. Harry almost told them the secret of the book they had just read like a madman, but stopped in time. He waved the dancing magic book in his hand vigorously, trying to amuse Ron's attention to the book. Tell me what you want, Harry. Ron raised his right hand and leaned his head on it, indicating that he wanted to listen carefully. The structure of the dragon's heart step by step and perfectly fits it into the human body. And how to mix a potion to replace the blood in the body. Harry became more and more enthusiastic. Harry, why don't you skip these terrible contents? I still like my original self. Ron put down his right hand, leaned back in the chair, and shrank his neck. Well, Harry licked his lips with satisfaction. These were created by Isolde Sayre so that her husband could have the same lifespan as a wizard, And always be healthy and not be harmed by some mischief spells. General mischief spells are equivalent to curses from muggles. What were you talking about just now? Ginny woke up at the right time. As for why it was called just at the right time. Okay, time's up. Ryan took out a pocket watch, and the time on it had reached the agreed time, 6 o'clock. Chapter 382 Ryan's Pocket Watch. As Ryan finished speaking, Harry and the other two unconsciously looked at the pocket watch. For some reason, they all suddenly felt their eyes glued to the pocket watch. Then, the pocket watch was like a whirlpool on the water. Everything around it was swallowed up like the pointer on it turned looked at Ryan, who was sitting on the bed. He was still holding up his pocket watch. The time on it was 6 o'clock. Hiss. Ron gasped. Just now, we were not in a dream. Ryan, this is a dream you created. Ron became more and more certain as he spoke. After all, that's the moon is in my hand. Harry waved the parchment in his hand, which was filled with the contents of the book How to Forge a Strong Heart. Ron rubbed his eyes. However, Harry fell into deep thought the next second. How did they do that? I know why you said the time. It has to be 6 o'clock. This pocket watch must be a magical item that can be called a divine weapon, just like the Staff of Poseidon. Starting point of the time is when we leave the bedroom and go to the farm, and the end point is when we return here at 6 o'clock in the evening. Maybe we have left the earth. But from another perspective, we have always been in the bedroom, and time is flowing normally. Harry then looked at Ron, who had a question mark on his face. Don't you understand, Ron? Time transcends distance and everything else. When the time comes, we'll be back. Excitedly clenched his right fist and waved it in the air. Ryan suddenly felt like laughing. Harry's imagination is amazing, really amazing. Really? Harry, maybe it's because 6 o'clock is dinner time. Ron scratched the back of his head. Ryan's eyes widened. The idiot's intuition was really powerful. How is it impossible? Sirius told me that the Ministry of Magic has a time converter that can go back to the past. Harry waved his hand. However, when he turned to Ron, he also noticed Ryan's smile. I guessed right. Harry looked at Ryan. He obviously took Ryan's smile as a consent. At first, I thought you would take us to a pool and let us return to Earth through the Staff of Poseidon. After all, it allows people to be free anywhere there is water. But I guess I'm wrong. If you use water as the medium to move, there is still a distance. The moon and the Earth are so far away. Harry finally sighed. He was so immersed in his own world that he didn't notice the sour look that flashed across Ryan's face just now. Grandma. Ryan was very tired. As expected, it is easy for me to make mistakes when I think like a mortal. He had never thought of the lie about traveling to the moon via the Staff of Poseidon. You guessed wrong. I arrived at Moon City via the Staff of Poseidon. Poseidon. They're all fake anyway, just watch how I make them up. Harry on the side had no idea that he had just offended Ryan again, so much so that he was now scheming against himself in his mind. I see. Harry agreed. There was no doubt about Ryan's words. Ryan couldn't help but wonder if Harry was a woman. She might be tricked into being pregnant by him. Then let's go eat. Harry invited Ryan pregnant. Hey, Harry, where did you go today? Because there were few people, Draco took Pansy and sat directly at the Ravenclaw table. He vaguely told Harry that the days without Goyle and Crabbe and with only Pansy were very difficult for him, both happy and painful. We're in the bedroom. Ron, who was bound by the contract and unable to talk about the trip to the moon, answered first. But I've been to your bedroom and there was no one inside. Draco stuck a fork into the steak. This was like a thorn in Harry's heart. What if Draco knew that he was the only one who forgot about the trip to the moon? It's all Ron's fault. Harry gritted his teeth. Ron pointed at himself to show that he was innocent. You should have heard about Ron's blind date. Harry looked at Draco laughing. Yes, contrary to what most people think, handsome men and beautiful women are actually a minority among Slytherin purebloods. Crabbe and Goyle were not uncommon in Slytherin. They are all pure-blooded and have inherited the fine qualities of their ancestors. Any seasoning such as sugar to his milk. This is the closest to the sterilized version that is freshly squeezed and still has the unique fishy smell of milk. I liked it especially before Ryan traveled through time. While tasting the fishy smell that most people found hard to swallow, Ryan couldn't help thinking, no wonder in the original world line, Ron always used trolls to ridicule Slytherin. However, in female fanfiction, because of the actor who played Malfoy in the movie, Slytherins have become the representatives of noble and cool, handsome men and beautiful women. This is all a prank by George and Fred. Harry made up a lie seriously. Yes, we can only accompany him. And because we've been hiding from people, you probably won't know any news about us even if you ask others, Ginny added, leaning on Harry's shoulder. So, you've been running for a whole day. Dracula was stunned. Forks. Ron said confidently without changing his expression. After all, they actually ran for a day, on skateboards. And the location was just on the moon. Awesome. Draco couldn't help but give a thumbs up. By the way, let's go to Hagrid after dinner. He has something to discuss with us. Draco suddenly thought of it. Chapter 383, the scene of chapter tracing. Hearing this, Ryan's eyes immediately changed from casual to sharp, like a hawk spotting its prey. The extraordinary intuition of a wizard with clairvoyance, as well as the punctuation marks left by Ryan that most members of the Order of the Phoenix, except Dumbledore had, made him feel as if he had returned an hour ago and witnessed a conversation in the headmaster's office. Dumbledore, I think you made the wrong decision. Karkaroff's words have never been more eloquent. I checked all the usual haunts of wizarding communities in London: Delphinic Olymp's shop, Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, Gentle Wizard Clothing, the Quidditch Museum, the Leaky Cauldron, St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, the British Ministry of Magic headquarters. Such a change, and not through magic. You should know how dangerous Grindelwald is, your lover. The muscles on Snape's ginger face were tangled and saliva was flying everywhere, revealing his worry. I know him well. Dumbledore raised his eyebrows, but did not refute Snape's rude interest. No, you don't understand. If you really understand, then tell me, why did Grindelwald leave Ermengarde? And that invisibility cloak he's talking about, I know Harry's displeasing father had one, and he used to show it off, and he inherited it from his grandfather. Harry, Snape seemed to be irritated. He walked quickly around Dumbledore, his greasy long hair tangled in the air, and the black cloak behind him fluttered like a bat's wings. You're worried about Harry. You are worried that this matter may involve him. Dumbledore pushed up his half-moon glasses, suddenly realizing. No, not really. If you really have something to do, I will also. Snape's words were stuck in his throat, and his steps also stopped suddenly. He stood still, his brows furrowed, and his mouth turned into a U-shape. Severus, Dumbledore sighed and wiped his eyes with his hand. This will not pose any threat to Harry. The same goes for me. Dumbledore sighed again, but Snape's expression was still like an iceberg frozen for thousands of years, without any change. First, the invisibility cloak. Gettler mentioned it through Karkaroff just to make me understand why he was released from prison. It was also an invitation I couldn't refuse, so, your worries about Harry are unnecessary. Also, if Gettler really wants to attack me as you want, it won't be so quick. You have to know that I have to come to Hogwarts to participate in the Triwizard Tournament next school year. Dumbledore crossed his fingers, leaned back in his chair, and patiently explained to Snape. Just assume that you and Harry will be okay. What is that impossible reason to refuse? Snape still maintained his aggressive tone. However, his mouth has returned to its original shape. That's so rude. Slytherin back then, right? The fat, red-nosed Fosco Florin also opened his eyes. However, the other former principals in the portraits remained dozing. You know exactly what I mean. Phineas pulled his goatee angrily. A reason? A hope to save everything. Dumbledore ignored the conversation between Phineas and Fosco in the portrait on the wall. He stood up, and for the first time the smile that had always been on his face disappeared. A light that no one could understand shone in his light blue eyes. After an unknown amount of silence, Dumbledore finally came to his senses and said, by the way, go talk to Hagrid and ask him to ask his friends for their opinions on this matter. You want to know where Voldemort is now? Through Harry. Snape's Harry security radar was immediately activated. Yes, he may have had another dream. Dumbledore stretched out his right hand, and the Phoenix Fox flew to his right hand and gently pecked Dumbledore's ear with his beak. A spark appeared, and the next second Dumbledore disappeared from the spot. In the real world, Ryan opened his eyes. Dumbledore. Ryan thought. This is the long-awaited scene, the cross-century meeting between the greatest White Wizard and the first-generation Dark Lord. Ryan couldn't help but feel happy. Should I enjoy Harry Potter and the Troubles of Hagrid first, or watch 100 years of Stoker's Dracula, black and white collide again, although he can split himself, or watch two places at the same time, the sense of ritual will be lost. While Ryan was still struggling, Ron's speech helped Ryan make a decision. Let's do it tomorrow. Ron winked at Harry. He also needs to sort out the knowledge he learned from the magic of emotions before leaving Yuchen. Oh, yes, we are too tired. Effie Face should stop pretending to be tired. However, his thirst for knowledge and his resistance to the interaction between Harry and Ginny prevented him from saying much. Then go and rest. I'll write to Hagrid and tell him tomorrow, right? Draco felt something was wrong, but Pansy on his right tugged at his sleeve for Pansy. It was okay because Draco accepted Harry and the others if Hig, the big fool in her eyes, was also included. She would be a little unhappy. Well, tomorrow. After lunch, Harry agreed parchment that he had created using transfiguration to his notebook. Otherwise the above content will be gone. The content of magic theory was okay, I remembered it. However, the formula for making the blood replacement potion, as well as the precautions when making it, was still too much for him to remember just by memory. So, as they trotted towards the lounge, Ryan hid his presents again and disappeared from their memory. Chapter 384 Determination. It was a pitch-black sea, with thick clouds leading firmly the white moonlight. Only the occasional flash of lightning brought a little light among the surging waves. There, the sea surface is like a mirror, and only the waves that rise from time to time make people realize that this is not a static picture. On the sea, a large ship gleamed in the moonlight. It looked eerily skeleton-like, as if it were the wreck of a recently salvaged ship, and the portholes flickered with dim, foggy lights that looked like ghostly eyes. There was also a tall and thin figure standing on this ghost ship. This is an old man who looks weathered by the weather. Time and suffering have not taken away his youthful grace at all. The gold mixed in his white hair reveals his true hair color when he was young. His thin cheeks are pale, giving people a mysterious and strange charm. However, nothing about him was as eye-catching as his heterochromatic pupils. Combined with his slim wizard robe that resembled a black windbreaker and his ghost ship-like hull, anyone who saw him would subconsciously hold their breath if he was recalling some good memories. His eyes were dull, and his hands were clasped behind his back, as if he was waiting for someone. In short, this doesn't look like a living person, but more like a wax figure. Fortunately, the flaming flower that appeared behind him and the pleasant sound of a phoenix allowed him to turn his body, proving that he was still alive. Long time no see. A tall and thin old man dressed in a very fancy wizard robe embroidered with stars and moons appeared behind him. At the same time, a bird that was fiery red like a maple leaf but full of summer vitality flew to the topmast. Albus, long time no see. The black-robed wizard Grindelwald extended his right hand towards the fancy old man. What do you mean? Hand and replied in the same slightly trembling voice. Prove it to me. Out of Grindelwald's sight, Dumbledore clenched his left hand into a fist. Grindelwald pulled out a skull from his pocket, which should only be big enough to hold a thin piece of paper. The skull was originally where the spine was, and it was connected to a flexible tube that seemed to be made of bone but could be bent. He carefully placed the skull on the wooden table beside him and waved his wand. The eye sockets of the skull lit up with a soft light like a lit candle. Look! Grindelwald put the hose in his mouth and took a deep breath. Clouds. Yes, Albus, can you identify who that boy is? Although his face is blurry, he is a student of Hogwarts. You think we can go to the place where the resurrection stone is hidden in advance, Ariana? Grindelwald said as he walked towards Dumbledore. Don't call her name. I mean. Dumbledore showed such a weak expression for the first time. This expression was like a sword, piercing deeply into Grindelwald's heart. Grindelwald paused, wanting to say something. I don't know who that boy is, Dumbledore said, racking his brains to recall. It was as if it wasn't him who told Harry to accept the death of someone close to him last Christmas. Resurrection. Woman. Dumbledore suddenly thought of Harry, who had also mentioned resurrection. It was also Christmas at that time. His deceased relative Lily was also a woman, but the next second, he shook his head again. It couldn't be him, because Harry was nowhere near that tall and strong. That scene happened next year. It was impossible for Harry to change that much in just 1 year. What about that woman, the resurrected woman, in your prophecy? Did you see it clearly? Dumbledore held Grindelwald's hand. I foresee that what I saw in my dream will be the same as this picture. The appearance, body shape, and hair color of the boy and the resurrected woman were inexplicably distorted. Perhaps the resurrection stone is interfering with my third eye. Grindelwald conjured up a chair and sat down next to Dumbledore. But Dumbledore didn't care and even held Grindelwald's hand. Dumbledore was pointing his wand at the picture in the air. Under his control, the pictures in the smoke were replayed and paused over and over again. The boy seems to be talking in one direction. Wait, this ring. Dumbledore suddenly paused the picture in midair. Do you recognize this ring? Grindelwald shook Dumbledore's body excitedly. Maybe. But I need to confirm. I have to convince someone. Dumbledore narrowed his eyes. Who? Grindelwald let go of Dumbledore. Bob Ogden. He worked for the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. And whether the ring with the resurrection stone belongs to the Gaunt family doesn't believe riddle, but this stone is very important. It is the hope for Ariana to return to the world, for him and his brother to start over. As for Ogden, he was not sure if he was willing to cooperate. However, he had made up his mind to use legilimency, and even the imperious cursory looked towards the mast with telepathy. Fawkes flew down from the mast in a circle. With a flash of spark, Dumbledore disappeared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 Ron's Slippery Foot. A flash of thunder suddenly illuminated the dark night sky. In a dimension invisible to the naked eye, a castle looms in the thick leaden clouds in the night sky. In the top room of the castle, Ryan sat on the luxurious sofa, drinking black tea and watching the dialogue between Black and White in the tranquil sea. Behind Ryan, something was rustling towards him, trail on the red blanket embroidered with a phoenix, slowly approaching Ryan. Then, its head used Ryan's calves to gain momentum and moved upwards, wrapping around Ryan's body. The next second, the big green snake was at Ryan's shoulder. It was licking the side of Ryan's face with its forked tongue. A flash of lightning flashed outside the window again, and when the room became dark again, the snake was gone. In its place was a woman dressed in a hollow, gauze-like wizard robe. The beautiful white body is faintly visible under the black wizard robe. She sat sideways on Ryan's lap, caressing Ryan's cheek with her pretty, pure, primitive and wild face, and licking Ryan's ears like a snake from time to time. Nagini, it's not the time yet, Ryan said hoarsely while playing with the woman's indescribable parts. The woman fell silent and rested her head on Ryan's shoulder. Ryan looked into the distance, and just as he finished his words, Dumbledore on the ghost ship disappeared with a spark. Nagini seemed to have sensed something. With the body of a basilisk, she was able to keenly sense the sudden changes in the biological hormones in Ryan's body. Ryan waved his hand, and the entire castle suddenly became transparent. Surrounded by storms, thunderstorms, and huge waves, the two figures overlapped. The next morning, in the Ravenclaw Tower of Hogwarts, at the very edge, on Ryan's four-poster bed, under the blue quilt embroidered with the gorgeous flames, a bulge suddenly appeared. "Ryan, are you awake?" Harry looked towards Ryan's position, not noticing the disappearance of his mysterious roommate at all. It seemed as if Ryan had been resting in the bedroom. In his memory, he could even still see Ryan snoring at night. Ryan pretended to have just woken up and looked at Harry with sleepy eyes. Good guy. Ryan almost thought Harry had a snake too. Harry had panda eyes and a messy hair, looking hollow. If Ron hadn't noticed the open notebook and some unopened packages on his desk the next second, he thought that Ginny had accidentally stayed in the men's bedroom and Ron was sleeping so almost soundly that he didn't notice or prevent the accidental conflict between her and Harry. "What is this?" Ryan asked, looking at the packages. Ryan, who is in mortal mode on a daily basis, always has a lot of questions and vulgar thoughts. "Did I write a letter yesterday? These are the potion ingredients I asked Sirius to buy overnight," said Harry as he unpacked the package. "Well, is this the African brush snakeskin?" A long strip-like bark appeared in Harry's hand. "The blood of this fire lizard is good." Ron, who Harry had thought was still fast asleep, popped his head out from under the orange-yellow quilt embroidered with the logo of the Chudley Artillery. "What happened? Is that because of this?" Harry picked up a test tube with a cork in it, inside of which flowed a silvery white liquid that shone like the bright moonlight. "Unicorn blood. That counts. The question is, did I hear you correctly? You actually used the ingredients of detergents to make a potion to replace your blood?" Ron was stunned at first, then shook his head and said, "Bandemon secretion is a magical substance produced by Bandemon. It is acidic and can corrode the foundations of homes. This substance can be used to make certain magical cleaning agents when diluted. The ingredients of potions are all kinds of strange things. How to forge a strong heart. Ryan couldn't help but admire him a little. If it were my previous life, I wouldn't have such great perseverance. But the next second he touched his waist again. It was an enclosed room flashing with colorful lights. The carpet was filled with young ladies in tattered clothes and stained with unknown liquids. Torn stockings and colorful fabrics that could not be described in detail were scattered everywhere. In his previous life, he sat on the sofa and said, "I want to beat 10 of them." If you think about it this way, he probably has the same perseverance as Harry, even in his previous life. Yes, the Quidditch games are about to start, the Saturday after Christmas. It's our team versus Hufflepuff. I'm confident as a seeker, but they have Dudley. I've observed that Dudley is very strong. With the blessing of his weird magic, we might not even be able to score a single goal. But if I can do a preliminary blood transfusion before the game, then, Harry's eyes flashed with a desire for victory. Just for this. Ryan said almost at the same time as Ron. However, Ryan was looking at Harry's kidneys. Ron's attention was on those strange potions. "Harry, you should rest first." Pull Harry onto the bed. Oops. To get up, but pulled Harry's clothes open, revealing Harry's thin white chest. Then there was the sound of something falling to the ground. What are you doing?" Slipped. "Ryan, say something." Ron and Harry struggled to stand up and said separately, "Okay. I just fell asleep again." "What's wrong?" Ryan got up from the bed and rubbed his eyes. Ginny stood there in a daze for a moment, and then with a roar, she disappeared. The second chapter will be posted later because I forgot the time while reading the novel. Chapter 386, The Portuguese Long-Nosed Dragon is out. The cold wind blew past, cruelly cutting across the cheeks of Harry and his companions like a blade. The sun hanging in the blue sky seemed like an illusion and did not bring any warmth to people. Now, they were heading to Hagrid. Shortly after Ginny ran out, Hagrid's letter was delivered by Heward. Hagrid invited Harry and the others to have breakfast and talk about the topic he and they had planned to discuss yesterday. Ginny thought about it carefully. But Ginny still looked indifferent to Ron, just like the cold wind that blew from time to time. She restrained Harry firmly to her left hand, away from Ron on her right. According to Ginny's original words, she decided to keep some distance between Harry and Ron until Ron found a girlfriend. "What's wrong with you?" Draco tipped to Ron's right side and nudged Ron with his elbow. "Nothing." "No, well, if you must know. Today in the dormitory, Ginny saw the accident between Harry and me." Ron glanced at Ginny out of the corner of his eye and said hesitantly, "What?" Draco demanded. "It's almost the same as in that photo." "What picture?" "A photo of Rita Skeeter." Ron and Draco asked and answered each other. Before they knew it, Harry and the others had walked away. "Hey, wait for us." In a blink of an eye, they arrived at Hagrid's hut. "Kids, you must be hungry." The sausages on the bread in Hagrid's hand sizzled. Ron swallowed and tried to say something, but a laspid, hopping on a spider web in the corner of the room, kept him silent. "Yeah, it's delicious." "What is this made of?" "It tastes a bit like chicken." "Meat, it took me a lot of effort to figure out how to deal with it, can you believe it? All it takes is 10 minutes of marinating it with the secretions of the spotted mulberry." Hagrid exclaimed in amazement. Ron subconsciously felt like vomiting, not sure if it was because of Alice Spade or because of Bandamang. Ron knew it well. Before Ginny was born, their house wasn't as clean as it is now. The Bantam is a magical creature found throughout the world that excels at crawling under floorboards and behind skirting boards. It has many eyes and looks like a slightly green fungus. They appear in residential areas in groups, feed on dirt, and can damage the entire houses. He could never have imagined that Hagrid would handle dragon meat in this way. He understood Ron very well. Ron's performance was actually the same as what he had heard about the production process of Old Phlegm pickled cabbage in his previous life. The scene returns to Hagrid. Harry has finished eating the last sausage and Ginny is wiping his mouth considerately. "Hagrid, do you have any questions?" Ron asked, trying hard not to look at Harry in order to amuse his attention. "Professor Dumbledore suggested that I seek your advice." "Well, I'm going to select a group of magical creatures for the competition next school year. You all know what I like. The Ministry of Magic informed me that if I really want, I can choose 3 of the following types of dragons: Hebridean Black Dragon, Peruvian Venomous Dragon, Portuguese Long-Nosed Dragon, and Hungarian horntail. Hagrid's eyes seemed to glow when he read out the names of those dragons. Get rid of the Hebridean black dragon. They are in the Scottish Hebrides, not far from Hogwarts. And the McFasties, a wizarding family, have continued the tradition of caring for the black dragons of the Hebridean Isles. Draco, a dragon enthusiast, made a rigorous analysis, but they look so cute: black, rough scales, a row of shallow but razor-sharp ridges on their backs, a pointed arrow at the tip of their tails, bat-like wings, and a pair of rare bright purple eyes. Hagrid pulled his long beard, his black small beetle-like eyes filled with confusion. What about the Peruvian Vipertooth? There are so many of them that we need to send in additional dragon slayers. And it's also the origin of dragonpox. Draco, whose grandfather died of dragonpox, cast a crucial vote for the Peruvian venom-fanged dragon, but it's the smallest and fastest flying dragon of all known dragons, only about 15 feet long and has the smoothest, brass-colored scales. Hagrid refused again. Hungarian horntail? It's too dangerous. It is the most vicious and aggressive type of fire dragon. The fire-breathing distance is very long, about 50 feet. Draco covered his face with his right hand and analyzed again helplessly. However, when Draco said his most vicious and aggressive words, Harry knew the outcome without even having to listen. No, no, no. It can absolutely not be ruled out. It has black scales all over its body and a lizard-like appearance, with yellow eyes and bronze horns, and its tail has spikes that are almost bronze in color. Sure enough, as Harry expected, Hagrid stood up abruptly, waving his hands as big as a palm fan, very excited. Then it can only be the Portuguese long-nosed dragon. Ron, who had no say in the matter about the dragon, suddenly raised his hand. Draco rolled his eyes. He was actually a little angry about Hagrid's repeated rejections, and Ron's quick response made him feel vengeful. So, Draco looked at Hagrid with a sly smile. It's not impossible, Hagrid said hesitantly. Draco scratched his ears in doubt. Did he hear it wrong? Then why are you hesitating? You obviously already have the answer. Draco accused unhappily. I haven't seen a live Portuguese long-nosed dragon yet. Impressed by you. Draco couldn't help but roll his eyes. Chapter 387 The Dragon Lord is about to awaken. In a wooden house near the Forbidden Forest, the crackling of burning wood, the light of the flames in the fireplace, and the warmth in the air, coupled with the abundance of food and wine, inevitably made yawn and nod their heads. However, Ron remained a little sober the entire time. Firstly, he was not full, and the desire to fill his empty stomach helped him. The second reason was a laspid, which made a rustling sound all the time. Just as Hagrid was talking about Alice Spade's recent increase in appetite, Ron finally couldn't help it. Hagrid, why would Dumbledore ask you to ask us? Isn't that a simple question? Ron changed the subject. Harry, whose head was resting on Ginny's tablet, woke up as if from a dream. Right? Could it be? Harry learned one thing from Ryan, that Voldemort was dead again. Could it be that Dumbledore was using this question to get him in touch with Hagrid? Then let's see what he dreamed about. Is there any address where Voldemort is hiding now? But given his character, even if Dumbledore didn't let Hagrid ask him indirectly through this question, he would have told him immediately. The sleepiness that had not yet been completely dispelled, coupled with Ron's speculation, made Harry's head feel like it was filled with paste and he was confused. Harry would never have guessed that this was entirely Dumbledore's idea. As the greatest white wizard, Dumbledore, especially since he also possessed some of Grindelwald's characteristics, made his wizard intuition incredibly strong. Perhaps he didn't know that Harry and the others went to the moon, but his subconscious mind made Dumbledore make this move. If Ryan had not transferred Harry and the others from the moon back to the bedroom in such a short moment, the normal development would have been that Dumbledore discovered that Harry and the others were missing through this chess piece. Finally, I learned the news about Yu Chang through them. Well, maybe Dumbledore is just too wise. You know, among the 4 dragons selected by the Ministry of Magic, 3 are foreign dragons. If you look at it, you may only be able to see whether the dragon is majestic and what its characteristics are. But Dumbledore also looks at diplomacy, economics, and competition design, things that you would never think of in your lifetime. As a die-hard fan of Dumbledore, Hagrid praised Dumbledore generously. Maybe the 4 children felt it was a bit strange, but they couldn't find a better reason. By the way, what happened to Fred and George? Hagrid asked suddenly for no reason. They and Percy left Ginny and me and went to Egypt to see Bill. Ron immediately put his suspicions behind him and recalled how he felt when he found out the two of them were traveling. They also set up a blind date for Ron. "Excuse me, can I say this? Date? After all, I have Harry," Ginny said in the face of Ron's puzzled look. Hagrid, Harry, and Draco had no idea how Ron had offended Ginny again. Only Ginny knew this because she had just been with Harry and was suddenly interrupted by Ron. Thinking of this, Ginny touched her chest, which was wet with Harry's saliva. This is real. That when he mentioned the blind date, Ron's resentful eyes almost burned him to death. Really? Ace Ron, but was smarter than Ron, thought of something. It can't be true. It is said that there are wolves in there. Draco looked at Hagrid suspiciously. When he heard Ginny's words just now, Hagrid clearly showed a guilty expression. Even his big beard could not cover it up. As soon as Draco finished speaking, 4 pairs of eyes stared at Hagrid. You don't look at me like that. I promised. Alright, I'll tell you." Hagrid still couldn't stand the torture of Harry and the others' gazes, and finally gave up. "Ron, Ginny. You may have heard of Fred and George's dream, to open a joke shop, comparable to Draco's. However, although they are very talented in this area, they need to use some raw materials to develop products. And you should all understand that. So I have been half-tacitly allowing them to sneak into the Forbidden Forest. Looking very easy. I'm going to tell my mother." "How dangerous?" Ginny raged. "What is semi-default?" Ginny's boyfriend status. Harry could only secretly wink at Ron to show his support. "Ginny, don't worry about that. I've always been semi-acquiescent with them. If they really want to run to a dangerous place, I will stand up to stop them. I'm an expert in this area. It's strange to say, but I've always had an inexplicable sense of familiarity with this forest. Once, I didn't even need fangs, and I subconsciously found the place where Fred and George were hiding," Hagrid said, his face inexplicably dazed. Ginny, Ron, and Draco didn't think anything was wrong. But Harry inexplicably saw a picture in Hagrid. It was a full moon night, deep in the Forbidden Forest. All kinds of magical creatures lived together in harmony, and were obviously preparing for a performance, and in the center of the group of magical creatures, a tall man with an unclear face sat on the head of a giant dragon. Stone Hagrid, the Thunderborn of the Hagrid family, Hercules, king of the Forbidden Forest, controller of giant creatures, mentor in the Mirkwood, liberator, and lord of dragons. Harry sat in a trance. He seemed to hear all kinds of strange roars, and the forest behind him seemed to come alive. It seemed that invisible vines flew out of the forest and wrapped around Hagrid, who was also in a trance at the moment. Chapter 388 Hephaestus. The passing wind leaves traces, and the passing geese leave a sound. This is especially true of the wizard's name. The names of some powerful wizards may even be suddenly remembered when the names are no longer recorded in history. The same was true for Harry. When Ryan absorbed and studied part of the power in his body and even installed surveillance cameras on him, he replicated some of Ryan's characteristics information with this magic. No one can take away Ryan's memory. This is a magic forged from Lane's belief that the self is built upon all of a person's experiences. Conversely, Ryan can easily add information to a person's mind. The same is true of Grindelwald's precognitive dreams, and Harry had just glimpsed that name directly through his own wizard. Of course, this was with Ryan's permission. When Hagrid was in a trance, he gave him a push. So, when that great name sounded again, the Forbidden Forest came alive. Under the astonished gaze of Harry and the others, Hagrid's body moved without wind, and his messy hair fluttered wildly in all directions. A Laspert in the corner climbed down from the spider web on the wall and prostrated himself. From an angle that Harry and the others could not see, in the Forbidden Forest, there were acromantulas, unicorns, nifflers, botricles, phalarope, fairies, goblins, thestrals, and even the most arrogant centaurs who would rather degrade themselves to beasts than share their human identity with hags, vampires and other creatures. All of them bowed their heads one by one under the inexplicable force. It was a force that was like that of a kind father, majestic and peaceful. A brief moment of confusion, he opened his eyes. Everything in the Forbidden Forest, the appearance of the magical creatures saluting in various postures at this moment, and the innate sense of dominance gradually awakened in his heart. Boom. Hagrid closed his eyes in panic, and the link was broken which contained a power that controlled everything. He had an illusion that if he wanted, he could even give the clouds in the sky a brief life and then bring them under his control. Even the enemy's magic. I must be crazy. Hagrid couldn't help shaking his head. Hagrid, have you heard of titles such as the King of the Forbidden Forest, the Controller of Giant Creatures, the Mentor of the Mirkwood, and the Lord of Dragons? Harry was the first to come back to his senses, and that string of titles was inexplicably engraved in his heart. No, but it's familiar. Hagrid stretched out his hand tentatively towards the fire in the fireplace. Hello. My master. The fire jumped, outlining the outlines of eyes and mouth in the center. It's alive. Saw it, Harry recounted the vision. That was at least 1,000 years ago. The dragon you just described is obviously an ancient species. It's called Pluto Dragon. Its name comes from the fact that no wizard can survive its clutches. Its information is known only to those lucky people who happen to encounter it dozing off. Red scales, golden mane around the neck, and black gold eyes. Yes, it's the Pluto Dragon. What it looks like, as you do, Harry, said Hagrid sourly, with a hint of jealousy in his longing. That may be the title of your ancestors. No wonder I became friends with you so naturally. Draco made a face. He made a joke about his previous backward idea of judging people only by their bloodline. Definitely is. Harry's dreams are never wrong. Harry, you must choose divination when you choose your courses next year. Ron slightly proudly. Divination. That Trelawney guy is an old liar. These are Professor McGonagall's exact words. Hagrid said after careful consideration. It's understandable that Professor McGonagall doesn't believe this. After all, she looks like. Ron didn't say the last 3 words aloud, but his lip shape clearly said old-fashioned. In our eyes, we would probably think that Harry was just an old Harry. Harry. Ginny waved her hand in front of Harry's eyes. Harry, what did you dream about? You dreamed about Voldemort. What kind of extinct dragons did you dream about? After Harry came to his senses, Ron, Draco and Hagrid came up to him one by one. Nothing, I was just daydreaming. Harry smiled shyly. Oh. Except for Ginny, Hagrid and the other two in disappointment at the same time. By the way, Harry, there's also arithmancy, don't forget to choose it, Draco quickly added. Well, I was pretty good at math when I was in primary school. Harry patted the table, and he recalled the lonely days when he was only accompanied by math. Because of Dudley, no one dared to make friends with him. He suddenly realized that the reason why he worked so hard to study the potion formula and how to forge a strong heart might be because of the hostility towards Dudley that still remained in his heart. He wouldn't allow himself to lose Dudley, a former nuisance, a guy as annoying as Darth Vader. Hello, my name is Draco Malfoy. Hello, what is your name? Dad is here. After Harry came to his senses again, except for Ginny, the other 3 had already gathered in front of the flame of the fireplace. I don't have a name. The flame shook its body helplessly, and the firewood in the flame cracked. Hephaestus is the name of the god of fire, so I'll call you Hephaestus. Hagrid added some wood to the flame lovingly. Let me try, Hagrid. Hephaestus, come here and open your mouth. Ron squatted in front of the fireplace and stuffed another handful of firewood into it. Chapter 389 The Power of Activation. On the sparse clouds with sunlight shining through them, a handsome boy who seemed to have walked out of a fairy tale was looking at the ground with interest. He is like a prince of a kingdom in the clouds, looking down upon the creatures on earth. This boy is Ryan. Ryan already knew about Rubeus Hagrid's state and power before, during and after his awakening. He could create them directly in his mind through wizard intuition without even having to think, the original world line. Before Ryan went to school, he learned Hagrid's strange power that was like an iceberg hidden under the sea level. For example, the birth of Jerry, the fiend-free who had already swallowed 2 Horcruxes, used the power inherited from the Dragon Lord, which activated and controlled everything, that is, the part of Hagrid that he inherited paired dance, but within it lies the power of birth of life, from 0 to 1, otherwise, why would Ryan be willing to spend time to learn? But relatively speaking, the cost of using it is also relatively more serious. Unlike ordinary magic, which only consumes physical strength as long as the animated life is still alive, it will permanently occupy a portion of the blue bar of its creator. However, this is also easy to solve, as long as one thing is noted. The creator should not give that life a name as long as it is not given a name. For a period of time after its birth, it will continue to consume the power in its body that gives it false life. When that power is exhausted, it will occupy the creator's blue bar according to the connection. The creator can also choose whether to pay the price, and if they don't want to, they can cancel it unilaterally, as long as it doesn't have a name yet. If a name already exists, especially if it was given by the creator himself, It cannot be unilaterally cancelled. You must kill it or transfer the cost through sophisticated magic to restore your mana bar. Ryan used a similar approach to avoid such costs. Jerry's predecessor was a fierce fire. Even Ryan, who had the magical power of a perpetual motion machine, could not afford to activate it, because the permanent activation would cut the upper limit of the blue bar and had nothing to do with Ryan's recovery ability. But Ryan used the soul of a cat as his base, so that it, which already had life, would not take up too much of Ryan's upper limit. The second is that Ryan used the principle of the immortal fire of Gubli to transfer this price directly to the magic magnetic field, that is, this world. Such a Jerry, to use the terms of fantasy novels, is an innate creature who regards heaven and earth as his parents. This is actually perfect enough, but Ryan has a third plan, which is to let Jerry swallow the Horcrux so that it will have its own independent source of magic. In this way, even if the relationship between it and the magical magnetic field is isolated, it will still be fine. However, only Ryan can do this. For Hagrid and others, such a price is almost unacceptable to them. Precisely because the cost is so severe, according to the information Ryan learned through his time travel, no Hagrid would choose to use this power on an ordinary object. They mostly use it on magical creatures that already have life, bringing clarity to their chaotic minds and then controlling them. Even during the time under the control of Hagrid and others, these magical creatures were temporarily equivalent to one species, which allowed them to break through reproductive isolation. Scroot was the power unconsciously emitted by Rubeus Hagrid, which allowed the fire crab to mate with a human-headed lion-body scorpion-tailed creature, a new species. If Hagrids choose to give permanent life to non-living objects, they usually choose wands, swords, and other objects that are greater than the sum of their own. Rubeus Hagrid, who used the power of animation on an ordinary fire and named it, is unprecedented. After being named, it becomes different from ordinary virtual life that is temporarily activated, just like a magic phenomenon that is born out of a spell because of its naming. But relatively speaking, this actually had little impact on Hagrid, because this life was just an ordinary fire before it was activated. Its existence, that is, Hephaestus's existence, at most makes Hagrid eat a little more than before. And Hagrid himself doesn't use magic much. His physical body is far more terrifying than his magic. However, what if Hagrid didn't realize this problem and continued to animate and name various inanimate objects? In the end, Hagrid was just a muggle who could enslave countless strange lives. Isn't this the Harry Potter version of a super newbie? Just like the super rookie, he relies on Pokemon to fight and has the same strong physique. Ryan couldn't help thinking and smiled strangely, and Hagrid, who was in the cabin, rubbed his stomach. "I think I'm a little hungry." Hagrid looked at his cabin. The sudden hunger made him want to stuff something into his stomach. He looked at the hams and pheasants hanging from the beams, and then at the dragon meat in the wooden barrel in the corner that had not yet been picked and given to Laspid. "It seems that there is nothing to eat right now at my house." As a big-bellied man, Hagrid's family is not short of food, but what he lacks now is something to eat right now. In the early days of Christmas, he tied all the food he could eat to celebrate the holiday. The dragon meat sausages that were freshly made this morning were also eaten by him, Harry and others. Just as Hagrid couldn't help wanting to cook, Harry spoke up. "Hagrid, why don't you go call the house elves?" "I forgot. On weekdays, I only asked them to deliver ingredients like flour." "Did he?" Hagrid rubbed his big hairy head embarrassingly. As Hagrid finished his words, a house elf appeared wearing a strange outfit, a tea towel with the Hogwarts crest printed on it. Harry looked at it carefully several times before he confirmed that it was a tea towel. The house elf named Diddy had simply wrapped the tea towel around himself as a robe. "Hello, gentlemen, and this lady." Diddy bowed to Hagrid and Harry. "Send me some food, I'm hungry." Hagrid waved his hand. Diddy nodded, and the next second, the plates left by Harry and his friends disappeared, and plates of food appeared. This is all what we like," Harry couldn't help saying. "Sir, you are Harry Potter. He pays more attention to the daily preferences of you and your friends." Diddy bowed again. "Oh, is Dobby better than him?" Harry asked curiously. Ron and Draco beside them also showed interested expressions. Chapter 390. Suddenly, Pansy from the Zhang family. Dobby is a strange elf. He intercepted Harry's letters during the summer vacation without his master's instructions, for Harry's safety. He even talked about freedom, which other house elves feared him. He is not like a normal house elf at all. He totally disregards honor. Not to mention asking for salary, he even dared to disturb Mr. Riddle, Who is considered our master?" Diddy lowered his head, his bat ears trembling slightly, and he looked very ashamed. When he mentioned the salary, Harry even suspected that at that moment, he wanted to bang his head against the wall. Is he okay then? I mean, Professor Riddle didn't give him a hard time. Harry frowned, very worried. Dumbledore stepped in. Dobby was no longer, like that didn't eat him for the time being. He bowed to and disappeared while eating. Hagrid curiously asked about Dobby's story. "There are house elves like this," Hagrid said while gnawing on a chicken leg. His look of doubt about life made Ron grin at that time. He also lived like this because of Dobby. Now that he saw Hagrid and thought that he was not the only one like this, Ron felt relieved. "He's weird, isn't he? Hey, Hephaestus, eat and have a chicken drumstick." Ron nodded with satisfaction and bent down to throw a chicken drumstick into the fireplace. Draco was also squatting beside him, stuffing wood in. Harry and Ginny were cuddling together. After Hagrid had his fill, Ron, whose interest faded as quickly as he came, turned his attention to Hagrid, who was picking his teeth eyelids. "When I open the second one, I can see everything in the Forbidden Forest. I can feel the water drops falling, the flowers blooming, and even see the dust in the air." Hagrid looked dazed again. "Are there flowers in winter?" Ron raised his hand in confusion. "Idiot, haven't you ever taken a herbology class?" Draco rolled his eyes. "There were so many magical plants that bloomed in winter. I just didn't expect it." Ron raised his hand in confusion, said it was all Hephaestus' fault. He was too absorbed in the mystery just now. Hephaestus shuddered in confusion, and the chicken bones and wood in his stomach cracked. How did Plutosaurus become extinct? They're so powerful. They just lay eggs and leave them alone. Plus, each Pluto dragon is too strong, and their large territory makes it difficult for them to meet each other. It has further reduced the already low reproduction rate. Hagrid sighed, his face full of disappointment. The following days were peaceful. Harry spent a whole day in his dormitory brewing potions, accompanied by Ginny. Ron and Draco went to Hagrid's place all day long for Hephaestus. In fact, Draco should have been with his girlfriend all day like Harry. On the second day after Hephaestus was born, the arrival of a letter made Pansy leave Hogwarts. It is said that several of her relatives died and explicitly said that the funeral was not actually dangerous. Isn't that weird? Draco, who had just finished watching Hephaestus, complained to Harry while stuffing his steak in the hall. Ron stepped at the side. He looked as if he had known about it for a long time. He must have known it in advance when he went to Hagrid with Draco. "According to what you said, all the young people in their relatives' family are dead. This may be related to inheritance and family inheritance, even though you are Pansy's fiancé, you haven't officially married yet. Besides, your family's reputation, you should understand." Harry waved his hand, letting Draco feel at ease. "Okay. Correct. Harry, what potion are you brewing lately? You smell almost like Professor Snape now." Draco twitched his nose at Harry. "Yeah, that's the smell. So would you if you were around potions ingredients all day?" After all, they couldn't talk about everything in Moon City. The moment they actually saw Moon City, all the related memories were automatically covered by a strange magic question. "This involves business secrets," Ron explained quickly. Harry couldn't help but smile bitterly. Damn it, Ron. Harry was planning to make up a potion, but his plan was disrupted by Ron's lies that were full of loopholes. "It's not a trade secret. Haven't I heard recently that there are a lot of modified Muggle items in Diagon Alley? I'm going to combine shampoo and potions from the Muggle world to create a better shampoo. You know, that's how my ancestors made their fortune." Ginny always complained that her hair was a little messy. "Right, Ginny." Harry gave a frantic look at the half of his face that Draco couldn't see. Ginny took advantage of Draco's inattention to glare at Harry and Ron. "Then I'll use it after the research is successful." Draco touched his hairline worriedly. He was afraid of having his hairline recede as he got older, just like his dad. Chapter 391, Changes in the Ministry of Magic. Part. Finny Dax looked at himself in the elevator, took a deep breath, and pressed the button for the second floor. Even though it had been 6 years since graduation, he was still not used to working overtime during the Christmas holidays. Furthermore, ever since the registration for Muggle item modification was opened, the second floor has been overcrowded. Since the second floor belongs to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, naturally its subordinate departments, the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office and the Auror Office, are on the same floor. Every day the elevator is filled with wizards who need to register, which forces employees like Dax to use the fireplace in the Auror's office to commute to and from get off work. The reason why he kept using the elevator now was to meet a long-lost figure, his girlfriend from student days, Charlotte Austin, who was of Muggle birth. Austin now works for a company that specializes in helping people register Muggle-modified items, and as a Muggle wizard, she does a great job in this area. But today apparently Dax didn't spot Austin. They also have Christmas Day off. He walked out of the elevator dejectedly and passed through two heavy oak doors. In front of him was the Auror office, also known as the Auror headquarters, an open space divided into several small compartments, each compartment belonging to an Auror. During the period when he had just graduated, he would probably look at those photos as soon as he got to work every day, then write a report, and then go to various wizard gathering places to patrol in the afternoon, hoping to catch a dark wizard and win a generous bonus. But now, Dax is not like this anymore. It's not because he has been worn down by time, but because they have hardly seen any traces of dark wizards recently. Even when they went to Nocturne Alley, they could only find some wizard thugs who were committing petty thefts. Starting from a certain period of time 3 years ago, those famous dark wizards disappeared without a trace. People like Carlo and Nott cannot be arrested because there is no evidence. To be honest, Dax now feels more like a security guard. Dax actually had some guesses about the whereabouts of these dark wizards. After all, the time when they disappeared was about the same time as the appearance of Skywalker's alchemy workshop. Suspected it's their pirated goods, a shop that Borgin and Burke opened after changing their business. Dax thought that these dark wizards should have gone to Borgin and Burke's. However, Dax and the entire Auror office could do nothing about Borgin and Burke. They were running a legitimate business and were major taxpayers. If Borgin and Burke are destroyed and these dark wizards flow into the Wizarding Society again, who will be blamed for the negative impact they cause? It was also because of this that Dax almost felt it as the wand was rusting. But he wasn't going to complain, because their free time meant peace for the British wizarding world. However, they have been busy again recently, ever since Arthur Weasley's promotion, and now they seem to have returned to their wartime style. On the table of each Auror's cubicle is a high-level portkey that only high-ranking officials could use to go to and from get off work. In the past, they could only use the fireplace Floo network. Although using the Floo network would allow dark wizards to notice the Auror's tracks in advance, allowing them to be avoided or even ambushed. But people like Fudge don't care. In their opinion, their comfort during commuting is much more important than the safety of the Aurors. Furthermore, they believe that these difficulties can be overcome. For example, we could find a fireplace in a secluded room, but they didn't provide the funding. Or he could just apparel it, not caring at all that the Aurors needed to be in peak condition because they could face dark wizards. Weasley did a good job. Looking at the portkey on his desk, Dax sighed again. After clocking in at his workstation every day, he would use it to patrol his area until the end of the day, when he would return the door key to his colleague on the night shift. You know, there was no such thing as night shift in the past. At night, it is the world of dark wizards. This also means that there are almost no night markets in the magical world. Even Dax himself felt very safe with this change, watching the Aurors walking by the window before falling asleep. However, since it was not his turn to go out on patrol today, he did not need the door telephone key. After processing the documents, it was already 12 noon. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds on the enchanted ceiling, it meant that he could go to the cafe opposite the red booth outside the Ministry of Magic for dinner again. Hey, Finny, where are we going to eat? A short, fat middle-aged man poked his head out from the next stall. Now that the rain has stopped, of course we should go to New East. Its tomato beef brisket and snow-capped coffee are unparalleled. I'm not going to the main hall on the 8th floor to eat staff meals. Dax shrugged. But having said that, Dax still had to go to the 8th floor because that was where the exit was. Soon, a long and magnificent hall appeared in front of the two of them. The ceiling was peacock blue, inlaid with the glittering golden symbols that kept moving and changing, like a huge high-altitude bulletin board. The walls on both sides of the main hall are decorated with gilded fireplaces. The left one is for arrival and the right one is for departure. At lunchtime or dinner time, an oak door will appear on the wall next to the fireplace on the left, opening it to the Ministry of Magic employee restaurant. Finny, why is the statue of the Magic Brothers fountain gone? Dick, the short and fat wizard, rubbed his eyes. The statue in the center of the hall was gone. He usually liked to throw a few copper nuts into the fountain under the statue to make a wish. Perhaps the Ministry of Magic and St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries have a falling out? All proceeds from this fountain will be donated to St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries. Dax patted Dick on the shoulder and joked. Okay, let me be serious. Isn't it normal for it to be demolished? You know, our Minister of Magic is a woman. Dax winked at Dick. Dick suddenly realized. The Magical Brothers fountain is topped by a group of solid gold statues of witches and wizards, centaurs, goblins and house elves. Streams of water spurred out from different parts of the sculpture. But the tallest of them all was a wizard with a noble demeanor, holding his one eye and pointing it toward the sky. Surrounding him were a beautiful witch, a centaur, a goblin and a house elf. Centaurs, goblins, and house elves all looked up at the two wizards in adoration. Sparkling jets of water spurted from the tips of wizards' wands, from the arrows of centaurs, from the tips of goblins' hats, and from the ears of house elves. I understand. The tallest one should be replaced with a witch statue, not a wizard, Dick lamented. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, Changes in the Ministry of Magic. What an idiot. You don't know how to figure out your boss' intentions at all. You are from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. You should know that Arthur Weasley is the director of your sister department, and Ms. Bones is your direct superior. A wizard with a fat face said sarcastically. Obviously, he just heard the conversation between the two. How about you? You're from the Department for the Regulation of Magical Creatures and the Bureau for the Study and Restriction of Dragons, so you know more than us. Dick rolled his eyes and said sarcastically. He thought he was the wizard who threw coins into the fountain most frequently in the Ministry of Magic. How dare someone from another department interrupt him when he has agreed with his opinion? You can tell what kind of people Arthur Weasley and Ms. Bones are from the recent changes in the Ministry of Magic. Goblins and house elves are not on equal footing, and it's quite unrealistic, as centaurs and goblins consider themselves so much superior to witches and wizards. On the other hand, look at the smiling face of this house elf. Would it be strange if you didn't accept the order? You know, house elves have no other joy except serving wizards. This fountain completely imagines a harmonious picture of the magical world, which is in line with Fudge's previous style of whitewashing the peace and harmony, but this is not suitable for Ms. Weasley and Ms. Bones, who dare to change, admit the mistakes of the Ministry of Magic and do practical things. The fat-faced wizard raised his head with a smug look. My name is Dick. What's your name? Come over here and tell me in detail. My name is Dax. How about we treat you to a meal? Dick and Dax said separately. Guidance. Maybe they could find a way to get promoted. Facing the two people's admiring gazes and flattering tones, the man snorted and said, very good, let me guide you. My name is Wayne. You may wonder why you work so hard every day, but after several years, your position remains the same. Those who are not as good as you are getting promoted step by step. Wayne said after taking a sip of coffee while sitting in the main seat in the private room of New East Cafe. Why? Dax, the youngest one, couldn't help but ask. You have not learned to develop your work in accordance with the central ideas of those who are more powerful than you. When Fudge was in office, the Ministry of Magic's reputation was everything. As long as you can write reports, market yourself, and accidentally appear in the newspapers, bringing positive news to the ministry, you can be promoted. And so it is with Fudge himself. He chose to make it clear to everyone else that he listened to Dumbledore, who was more prestigious than him. That's how he got the position of minister safely. Wayne said after taking a bite of beef. I see, the same is true for Arthur Weasley. He was Dumbledore's man from the beginning. Dick slapped the table, suddenly realizing. Fudge was also forced to step down by a letter from Dumbledore because his work did not satisfy Dumbledore. So, what we need to do is not to try to figure out what Arthur Weasley and Ms. Bones are thinking. Instead, think about how to present yourself in front of Dumbledore and work according to his ideas. Dax's face turned red with excitement. At this moment, he felt that he had discovered the truth about promotion and salary increase. Yes, children can be taught. Especially you, Dax. Just like me, After I learned that there would be a true wizard tournament and Dumbledore's confidant Hagrid needed dragons, I communicated with Hagrid and subtly recommended to him the 4 dragons he was most interested in as part of the competition. Wayne touched his chin, looking very pleased with himself. The 3 of them smiled at each other, and at that moment they all thought, we all have a bright future. After dinner, in the elevator, when the 3 of them were about to press the 2nd and 4th floor buttons respectively, a figure broke in. What's wrong, Zui? Wayne kicked the man on the shoulder. Xiui is his colleague. His nickname is Busy Zui. In the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, apart from the Centaur Liaison Office, the Werewolf Capture Project Team, the Werewolf Registry, the Werewolf Support Services Section and the Ghoul Rangers, their Dragon Research and Restriction Bureau is also quite idle. Zui was transferred to this department because he offended an influential person, but Zui was unwilling to accept this and kept finding things to do for himself even though he had nothing to do. Hence the nickname Face. But now, he was very excited and happy. I got promoted. Zui hugged Wayne. Why? Are you? Wayne looked bitter and didn't know what to say. It was clearly him who had been in contact with Hogwarts recently, and he had also made his presence felt in front of Dumbledore and Hagrid. Why is it Zui? He didn't understand. You don't know. And Rawl? Zui asked before Wayne could reply. Of course I am familiar with them. They are very powerful in the Ministry of Magic. Several powerful positions are occupied by young wizards from their family, even though they haven't even graduated for a few years. If it weren't for them, we would have been promoted long ago based on our qualifications. Wayne complained. Dax and Dick on the side also showed indignant expressions. But they're all dead. Those young guys you mentioned. I don't know who did it. But this is a good thing for us, because there is a vacancy now. Look, I just applied, and they gave me a promotion because of my diligence in recent years. Couldn't help laughing out loud. Who do you think did this good deed? Riddle. I think he must be Dumbledore's illegitimate son. It was also because of his appearance that Dumbledore's style of doing things changed. In the past, he wouldn't care about the Ministry of Magic. Wayne smiled wisely. Chapter 393 Side Effects. Traveling to Bihei in the morning and Kangwoo in the evening is just Ryan's daily routine now. Even for him, it was even more exaggerated. In his long-lost free time, he possessed the mobility to reach the moon instantly in the physical sense. He could be in Hogwarts in the Scottish Highlands 1 second and in Paris, France the next. Physical distance has no value to Ryan. As long as he wants, he can appear anywhere on the earth. At noon today, Ryan came to the New East coffee shop, which he had opened opposite the outdoor elevator of the Ministry of Magic, which was also the red telephone booth, in order to study wizards. Here, he actually met his former research subject again, Finny Dax. The conversations between Dax and several others in his shop and in the elevator made Ryan realize Grindelwald's deeper meaning. Why did he kill those young wizards who had just followed Voldemort and had not yet committed any real crime? After coming to this world, Ryan actually got to know Grindelwald. He is actually a person who doesn't like killing. Thus, Nurmengard was created to imprison those who opposed him, but this time, the style of the past was changed. Although the responses of the other talented people besides Dax were outrageous, they cannot be said to be unrelated. Grindelwald's killing this time was all for Dumbledore in his eyes. As long as these conservative young people who occupy important positions are around, the existing good changes in the wizarding world will be slowed down or even destroyed by them. Because he knew Dumbledore was a good man and couldn't bear to do anything cruel. Grindelwald was unaware of Riddle's existence. And now, the development of the wizarding world, or the changes in the Ministry of Magic, has indeed changed because of the deaths of those young cancers. Among the employees of the Ministry of Magic who can be seen to have upward channels, there will be more and more busy people like Zui. The bloated Ministry of Magic also began to regain new vitality. Then I will do more practical work in the future. Now that we don't have to worry about getting into trouble, I feel like I'm back to the time when I just graduated. When they reached the 2nd floor, Dax, who had just parted ways with Wayne and Zui who were going to the 4th floor, had a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Long live Dumbledore! Dick looked at the sun on the magical ceiling, which was gradually rising. It was the day before the end of the Christmas holiday. In the Ravenclaw dormitory, Harry was fiddling with a pot of potion, which was bubbling. As Harry stirred and chanted strange spells, the curry yellow liquid in the cauldron began to become clear and its color turned silvery white. All right. As long as I take it continuously for 100 days, my blood will be replaced by this potion, and my body will undergo earth-shaking changes. Harry, who still had dark circles under his eyes and bloodshot in his eyelids, was trembling with excitement. You really want to drink this? Harry, think about it. It's so much trouble to drink this. You will have to get up at 6 in the morning, do a ridiculous dance, and recite a long spell without making any mistakes. Better, but the problem is, we have distillery for healing, extrasensory charms for perception, and various protective spells for defense. Ron looked at the pot of potion in front of Harry with disgust. It might look nice now, like more transparent unicorn blood. But before that, in addition to some normal potion ingredients, Harry had no idea how many strange and bizarre ingredients were added into it, like fresh slugs, toad livers, and mouse eyes, which were still considered normal in it. Ron could never have imagined that Harry would dare to drink this, and it was said that it would replace his blood. It's more than that. It will ensure that my body is always in peak condition and will not be tortured by illness. My body as a whole will be strengthened, especially my resistance to spells will be enhanced, not to mention my already superhuman reaction speed. Ron, is there a better deal than this? Just get up early and drink some potion. Harry said as he waved his once silvery white, clear liquid flowed out of the crucible as the wand pulled it, filling the empty bottles in front of Harry. You don't have to get up at 6 o'clock for the first sip of potion, and you don't need to dance or chant spells. I felt a chill. The feeling started from Harry's heart and spread to his limbs and even to the ends of his hair. What happened to me just now? Harry shook his head indifferently. I thought I was seeing things. Index finger and thumb casually upwards, the wand slipped from his fingertips, and with a casual movement of his right hand, it reappeared in his hand. It seems that the transformation of the body is beginning to show results. Harry smiled. The bottles of potions shining in the sunlight looked like Quidditch champions' trophies now. What could Dudley do to fight him? Oh, it looks like you succeeded. A clear voice came from behind Harry. His eye, he noticed that Ryan was standing in front of him. He was holding a bottle of potion and examining it in the sunlight coming in from the window. Ron, is Harry's potion okay? Ron's throat moved and his face turned pale. He seemed to be more nervous than Harry, the real person. Why would there be a problem? Potions are my forte. Quickly, but the salamander blood that Harry bought was of such good quality. With the advancement of breeding methods, the salamanders of today and those of that era can be considered two different species in terms of appearance. Ryan paused when Harry couldn't help but feel a little worried. Ryan said, but the side effects are not serious. It's similar to the Felixir, which makes people behave a little arrogantly. P.S. Thanks to Taishi Yumaksu for the monthly ticket and other classmates for the recommendation and subscription. Chapter 394 Failed Experiment. Lucky Elixir is a magic potion that can bring good luck to people. If you drink it, you'll find out that no matter what you do, you'll succeed, at least until the effects wear off. As an excellent student in potions, Harry naturally knew about it. This is a potion that takes an extremely long time to brew and involves very complicated and tedious steps. The blood substitute potion in Harry's was nothing compared to it. The only difficulty in Harry's potion was actually the materials, handled by superb magical skills, which were required to digest it through dancing and spells. Without the latter, this potion would only temporarily increase the body's sensitivity. But now, Harry heard something not become a standard item for some potion masters is entirely because of its side effects. It can cause dizziness, recklessness and dangerous arrogance. No matter how self-righteous a wizard is, after drinking it once, he would not dare to drink it a second time. Especially after suffering because of it. But now, Harry Potter, had to drink 100 doses of this potion, which had side effects similar to those of Felicis Felix. Do you know why you have to get up at 6 o'clock? Ryan did not answer directly, but turned the wand in his hand like Harry just did. Only then did Harry notice that Ryan's wand was very beautiful. It had an ivory texture and was covered with mysterious-looking patterns. Why? Harry didn't know how to answer, nor did he think about it. He felt dizzy as all his attention was focused on Ryan's wand. It's simple. Get up early and digest the side effects of the potion earlier. Ryan's wand stopped turning and he casually put it into his pocket. This is digestible. I guess I'll be back to normal in 2 or 3 hours. Harry regained his confidence and breathed a sigh of relief. So I said similar. It will take about an hour to digest. I suggest you don't go see Ginny during this time. Ryan said. Harry frowned in confusion. but still had that confident smile on his face. "Your smile right now is really stupid." After saying that, Ryan disappeared from the spot just as strangely as he had just appeared. "Do I really look stupid?" Harry asked in disbelief. "Really, if it wasn't for this expression on your face, I would want to punch you in the face," Ron complained. "Sleep. You can rest here and avoid Ginny, who might come in at any time and see your stupid face." Ron walked to the door and waved Harry to get on the bed. "But I'm still wondering why this side effect is not mentioned in the book." Harry climbed onto the bed with a smile that looked like he deserved a beating. "Doesn't the book already say to get up at 6 o'clock? It just gives you time to do something stupid alone." Ron couldn't help rolling his eyes. Ryan, who had just left, remembered something because of Harry's matter, an experiment that should have been accepted long ago. Deep in Nottingham Forest, in an ancient castle, in the basement, the Gubular fairy fire on the wall was glowing milky white. In the dark basement, rows of black crucibles were laid out on the ground in an orderly manner. There was no open flame on the ground, only the magic patterns of the orange cat wong surging at the bottom of the pots, bringing them a hint of warmth. Gold, and large drops of liquid jumped on the surface like goldfish, but not a drop spilled outside. "Lord God, how is the progress?" A figure stepped out from the gray film in the air. A human face appeared on the metal wall. "We have conquered the most difficult felicity potion," elixirs in front of him. The despair potion in Ryan's mouth was the same potion that Voldemort kept in the stone basin on his island in the Lake of the Inferi. Voldemort crafted it into a timeless potion, a potion that would never run out or remain effective forever by the Inferi, who are trapped in corpses for eternity. This kind of eternity is actually very easy to break, just drink it in one breath. But Voldemort hid the source of the spark in the stone basin and the space where the locket was hidden. This means that the potion actually has two sources. Only when the wizard drinks the potion in the stone basin himself, the source of the potion in the space where the locket is hidden will disappear, and the locket will appear again, the eternal potion, and the exquisite magic and potion knowledge covered in that stone basin. However, to make an eternal potion from an ordinary potion, there is no need for emotions. All one needs to do is to be in a magical environment, that is, in a magical magnetic field that exists as long as wizards exist. Potions like the Felicity Potion and the Despair Potion, which are extremely powerful and touch upon illusory concepts, would be so troublesome. Lord God, Jack and the others' emotions didn't work. Ryan, in mortal mode, did not think about connecting to the Lord God. But he just discovered that these potions had absorbed the emotions of Jack and the others. If his idea was true, a powerful and emotionally charged magical race like house elves should have enough quantity and quality to transform the potion into an eternal potion. Especially the house elves in his family, their treatment is unmatched by any other pure blood family. Under his command, it should be most easy to feel that you are most easy to feel, fortunately. Furthermore, this idea was obtained by Ryan after thinking, "Master, I have learned from your visual observation that the emotions are sufficient, the potion is fine, and the liquid medicine does have a tendency to last forever, but every time it reaches the last step, it suddenly fails. In the end, the quality of the elixir was only slightly improved, and the emotions were wasted," said the face on the wall. "Power that wizards can't control." Ryan couldn't help but swear. Chapter 395, Goddess of Destiny 3. Why is it that wizards, who were born gods and could distort reality with their minds, have now become poor creatures who can only perform tricks without their wands? Forced by the development of muggles to be isolated and self-sufficient. This is actually all because of those old guys Ryan just mentioned. Among the first batch of wizards who appeared, those who possessed omnipotent powers were just like the wizards today. They had their own strengths due to their personality, mind, and even bloodline. Some of them are good at controlling celestial phenomena, some are good at changing themselves, and some can even control time as easily as drinking water or eating. After an unknown amount of time, a group of wizards among these gods began to regard their own strengths as forbidden. He cursed all the wizards who were born later. My chamber. Resurrecting the dead is a crime of great disrespect. Some of these curses failed, but more of them succeeded. When Ryan was studying magic, he encountered several situations where something should have worked but failed inexplicably. And this time is no exception. Ryan's eyes became cold, as if they contained the whole world. Destiny is our right. Those who touch destiny will. When Ryan regained his true self again, under his thinking mode, 3 intermittent, old, beautiful, and childish female voices emerged from the river of destiny. The Three goddesses of fate representing the past, present, and future? With to near godlike Ryan, I turned a blind eye. I wronged the Department of Mysteries. Ryan suddenly sighed. With SOI people rep, it's normal that their research has yielded not results poured out from the white tip of the wand and flew towards the magic circle that was still running. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The golden liquid in the crucible began to rotate towards the center, rotating endlessly, as if a hole appeared at the bottom of the crucible. Finished, Elixir of Fortune, Eternal Potion Edition. Ryan waved his wand again, and 5 clean crystal bottles suddenly appeared in the air, with the golden liquid pouring out from the bottom of the bottles. Jack. Along with Ryan's shout, the house elf Jack appeared beside Ryan with a fanatical look on his face, and subconsciously looked at the Lord God with resentment. Master, let's keep it the same as before. As soon as Jack saw the number of crystal bottles, he knew where they should go. Yet, Ryan nodded, and Jack disappeared holding the crystal bottle of the 5 bottles of Felicis were Penelope, Kate, Fleur, Hermione and Luna. As for the side effects of drinking too much out of curiosity, they all have Ryan in their hearts, and the relationship between them and Ryan is similar to the relationship between believers and gods. Ryan's power will automatically wipe out the side effects of the potion they drink. They also cannot create a sure field by drinking the lucky elixir to increase their luck. With Ryan's initiative to point to the right power and his blessing, fate will develop in the direction he hopes. However, Ryan did not give his blessing to Harry and the others. Because if there really is such a blessing, it means that the movie Harry Potter and the True Savior will become a soft puppet show. Then what's the point of him going to school? Thinking of this, Ryan turned around and plunged into the gray membrane again, appearing in the empty bedroom. At this moment, Harry should be testing out his new body with Ginny on the Quidditch pitch. While Ron was free from watching Hephaestus with Draco, he combined what he had learned in Moon City to prepare a surprise for Fred and George. The next day, at 6 in the morning, Harry got up, took medicine and exercised. Ron also got up early. With Ginny as his insider, Ron already knew how and when they would return, by train at 7 a.m. So, in the cold wind and morning mist, Ron wrapped himself in a fur cloak, holding his wand tightly in his hand, and walked tremblingly towards the train station. Ryan disappeared into the mist, floating high in the air. It was as if there was an invisible chain between him and Ron, floating along with Ron's direction. It's amazing, only Ron can do this. Ryan could never have imagined that Ron would do this. He did not choose to wait at the gate of Hogwarts, or to guard the path that Fred and George would pass through. Instead, he walked stubbornly towards Hogsmeade Station path, where Hogwarts students needed to take a carriage to arrive on time. He passed through a magnificent cast iron gate flanked by stone columns topped with winged boars. After an unknown amount of time, Ron got up in the woods beside the small platform. On the tracks and platforms, a crimson steam locomotive was parked next to the empty platform. Familiar faces poured out of the locomotive. Ron's eyes widened as he looked at each body that might be Fred and George. He didn't care at all about the mud on his robe and the black mud filling up his fingers due to excessive excitement. He had not forgotten at all the pain of being set up on a blind date and being abandoned by Fred and George. These days, he has been using the knowledge he learned from the magic of emotions to fill all the pain and resentment he has felt in these days into a seemingly ordinary spell. He knew he could ambush them at the gates of Hogwarts, but Fred and George would surely be prepared. So now he was lying in ambush in a position that Fred and George could never reach with their feet. They would never have imagined that he would go so far to get up early in revenge. Furthermore, in their opinion, the time of their arrival should be a secret known only to the two of them, Percy and Ginny. When faced with an ordinary spell, they would not subconsciously dodge it. Chapter 396 Ron's Revenge. The birth of the magic often requires the full cooperation of the whole heart. Perhaps you can do it without saying it aloud, or even without using a wand at all. However, if you are chanting one spell out loud, you will never be able to perform any magic by chanting another spell in your mind. If this were really possible, then there would be no need for silent spells. Aurors can easily deceive their opponents by chanting the levitation spell and reciting Avada Kedavra in their minds. In all books on dueling, it is recorded that having good ears can sometimes be an advantage over normal spellcasting because you can prepare to counterattack or defend in advance by hearing the spell. Now, Ron was going to use this common sense against Fred and George. Moreover, this spell is very normal in this weather and not abrupt at all. Hearing such a spell, Fred and George would not think that someone was going to launch a sneak attack. So, among the many figures, Ron quickly noticed 3 figures. Even on a foggy day like this, The Wheel-Eye's fiery red hair was particularly eye-catching. But Ron's hair was hidden in the hood. "George, when we get to school later, we'll go to Hufflepuff first so Ron has time to run." "Okay, Fred, I wonder how Ronnie will retaliate against us," said Fred and George. "Behave yourself." Percy frowned in dissatisfaction. Loomis. As Fred and George walked into the path in the woods, a very familiar spell that had just been used by many people rang out. Just when they were about to think that the voice sounded a little familiar, the embarrassment of being surrounded, the disgust of being molested, the fear of escaping, and the dark faces and anger of being abandoned emerged in Fred and George's minds along with the fluorescent light directed at them. The cycle continues over and over again. It was even more than just emotions, the collision of those sturdy ladies' bodies with theirs, their reactions to being touched, and those images also appeared before their eyes. Ron. Percy was surprised to find that Ron, who had jumped out of the woods, cast a spell that definitely couldn't be a lighting spell, then took out a camera and took pictures of Fred and George, who were kneeling on the ground. "Look! Who is lying on the ground?" "Fred and George." Ron laughed. "Clean it up." Percy drew his wand and pointed it at Ron. "Did you get the camera?" Percy asked. "Harry gave it to me." "Don't you think this is wrong?" After taking the photo, Ron looked at his clean left hand and robe with satisfaction, his face full of confusion. They should have been taught a lesson long ago. Bill and I were told what they did in Egypt. Percy looked unhappily at his brothers who were still lying dead on the ground. "Spell. Also, this spell won't have any side effects, right? They are your brothers after they're." Looking at Fred and George who were still twitching on the ground, Percy changed his position after a brief moment of curiosity about Ron's magic. "I learned it from Harry. Harry can make the red spark spell like that, and I can also add my own touch to the illumination spell." "Percy, you're getting fast. This will only confuse them for a while. I'm going to run away first. I'm going to spread these photos everywhere in Hogwarts." Ron shook the camera in his hand and ran away without looking back. Ryan, floating in the cloud-like mist, curled his lips. In Ryan's opinion, this spell Ron cast played the role of recreating the scene. It can also be used as a first-person immersive movie. It is a step further than the cinema Ryan has opened in Diagon Alley. Ryan's film allows the wizard to be involved in the film, but it does not take the protagonist's perspective and feel everything about the protagonist. Instead, it is like entering a virtual dream like in the Pensieve, but with your own identity. Nor can you experience any feelings other than your own. In the cinema, those self-generated perverts also rely on the brothers in their own minds. If they could really bring in the protagonist directly, then they could free their hands. This variant of the luminescent spell is undoubtedly very popular. Ryan could think of 100 ways to use him to make a lot of money. As a foodie, Ron could easily inject his memories of eating into the minds of those who gain weight even by drinking cold water. In addition, he can also transmit his sense of using magic to others through this variant of the fluorescent spell. This will also make learning spells a lot easier. But Ron obviously couldn't think of that. And Ryan can do all of the above. The reason he didn't do it was entirely for the sake of the wizarding world also daydream about, and really brings them into the protagonist's cinema. Then it is estimated that no wizard will be willing to get married again, although, in the original world line, Fred and George launched the daydream spell with props, but daydreaming also depends on talent. Even if you can imagine everything in your dreams, things you have not experienced will always not be real. This will not cause people to confuse reality and fantasy, but Ron's spell and Ryan's idea of bringing the protagonist into the cinema have such magic. So, when Ron returned to the dormitory happily and sweating, Ryan, who had also returned to the dormitory, said nothing. He thought it would be better to just let nature take its course. Maybe Ron will never think of this in his life. "You made it, just you." Harry, who was still looking arrogant and under the side effects of the potion, said contemptuously, "It's me. I almost forgot, this is because of the potion." Loomis. Ron was about to explode, but when he realized why Harry was doing that, he waved his wand. "You." Harry was about to yell. A strange feeling and picture came into his mind. He lay in ambush behind a tree, feeling a damp sensation on his left hand and knee. Finally he picked up his camera and frankly took pictures of Fred and George. "I'm back to normal." Harry looked in the mirror. Mentality that had always lingered in my mind, thinking that God was the boss and I was the second, inexplicably faded away. "Is this possible?" Ron muttered to himself, looking at the wand in his hand. "I'm glad, Ron, you've found a new use for your spell, to help Harry wake up." Ryan decided to say something. Chapter 397 Ron just wants to make money. Time, 7:30, in the Ravenclaw boys' dormitory. Ron looked incredulous. So, I can use my emotions to transform my memories into bullets and add them to magic. He looked at his ordinary self in the window glass and realized that he could use such extraordinary magic. The magic book I recommended is the most suitable for you. Being overly emotional and used to being carried away by impulse are your strengths and weaknesses. After combining what you learned from the magic of emotions, it is normal for you to have some results. Just like the invincible Andrus is particularly good at the Patronus spell and can summon a giant-sized Patronus without a wand, it's no wonder that you are good at expressing your emotions. Ryan said lightly. In his opinion, every wizard actually has such potential. As long as they find their strengths, they will create extraordinary magic that only they can do. This is also why Ryan once thought about opening a university. He wanted to help more wizards find their best side, just like he had helped Ron, Ginny and Harry. Then, through the correct guidance of the system panel, as long as you work hard, you will be able to gain the ability and learn what they are best at. But Ryan himself could not have imagined that he would become invincible less than 6 years after traveling through time. There is only one Grim Reaper who seems to have lost himself and is more powerful than ever before and can rival him. Combined with what he saw in Atlantis and Moon City, he also realized that there was no need to establish a university, as there were already wizards doing so. However, Ryan still has a mentoring side. Now, he was ready to make Ron truly realize the potential of his magic. Wait, Ryan, what you mean is that Ron's magic is like the Patronus charm to Andrus, only Ron can achieve such an effect. Unlike Ron, who is grinning, Harry keenly perceived the true meaning of Ryan's words. Of course, otherwise someone would have used this magic to force peace long ago. Ryan agreed. Enforce peace. Is this possible? Ron looked confused. In the short period of time after Ryan told him the real purpose of this magic, he was not just grinning. In his little head, he has already planned a business blueprint based on his unique ability. First, let Fred and George, who are already Gryffindor celebrities, speak out. Then Harry and Draco came forward, and finally Cedric was won over through the relationship with his neighbors. At this time, his unique ability was widely known at Hogwarts of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and with his unique ability widely known in the only magic school in the UK, all wizards in the British wizarding world will know about his unique ability. Third, it is commercialization. To give those wizards in St. Mungo's who, for various reasons, could not experience normal life a brief chance to have a healthy life again. Wizards without a sense of taste can taste the sweetness, sourness, bitterness and spiciness again, feeling of running again. The wizard without that job once again enjoys the excitement of rushing. As for himself, he only needs to use the gold galleons he earns to enjoy life. He then shares this life that ordinary wizards cannot enjoy through his magic. However, to do this, he also needs a prop that can store his magic, or register a patent, pass on this magic, and prevent it from being leaked through a magic contract. But now, Ryan's words stunned him. His magic actually has a more noble use. Moreover, even if his magic was passed on, other wizards would not be able to achieve the same effect. Yes, the magic contained in yours is the power of understanding. Although it is only one-sided, you just need to work hard to practice occlumency and then strengthen your desire for peace. Then you can combine the good memories you have carefully selected from your daily life and incorporate these elements into your magic. Then, as long as you are strong enough, the wizards hit by your magic will regard peace as an ideal and enjoy life. Ryan said with a strange smile. This actually reminded him of the six-path sage in Naruto, who shared the desire for peace by giving people chakra. The only difference with Ron's is that it is one-sided and does not have the function of connecting people spiritually. That's totally the Imperious Curse. Ron rolled his eyes. In that case, he could as well practice the Imperious Curse and control all the wizards who destroy the peace, show the good side to others, and make those cursed realize it. But that's not the point, is it? Will occlumency help improve magic like Ron's? Harry's focus was completely different. He knew what kind of man Ron was. He noticed Ryan's words about working hard at occlumency. This might also be useful for his magical progress. During Ryan's previous training of him, Ryan had unconsciously revealed that it was not long before Ryan took him to the Resurrection Stone. His magical skills must be improved as soon as possible. Sealing off the brain. But judging from its surface function, it is a shield to prevent legilimency, a method of reading one's own memory. but it also helps you focus your mind and exercise your concentration. Knowledge he did not mention. Just like forging the shield of occlumency, polishing the spear of legilimency can also play the same role. What's more, the latter is more convenient. Invading other people's brains and reading them as if they were books is more satisfying than torturing yourself and guarding against invasion. It also satisfies everyone's desire to pry into other people's private lives. How difficult? How is it inhumane? Ron and Harry asked separately. They were all very interested in it. If you don't rely on others, then loneliness is the best friend of this witchcraft. You need to get used to being alone. Imagine that you are the only one left in the world. Abandon all emotions and concentrate on thinking. Don't recall or feel. Ryan said lightly. Isn't this just daydreaming? Ron was speechless. Usual days. Ryan shook his head. Children cannot be taught. Thanks to classmates 20220115110332204, FW 999, and for their monthly tickets, and other classmates for their recommendations and subscriptions. Chapter 398 Occlumency. That's really difficult, but inhumane, is it you who mentioned relying on others? Harry touched his chin and said with interest. Not bad, you haven't been led astray by Ron. What I just said is how I learned the art of brain occlumency. People like you, including those recorded in the book, rely on others. Best to be invaded once a day. Coupled with that, you need to clear out all emotions before going to bed every night. Keep your mind blank and calm to restore blood, Ryan said bluntly. Hey. What do you mean by mediocre? What have I done to corrupt Harry? Ron cursed. I'm impulsive. Harry, who prided himself on being a calm and intelligent Ravenclaw, looked confused. As impulsive as you are, Harry is still impulsive now, but he is obviously restrained, which makes him always discover the hidden meaning in my words. As for mediocre people, isn't it the same when compared to me? Ryan didn't answer Harry's question himself. Ryan thought that Harry's words were just a momentary surprise. Needless to say, whether Harry was impulsive in the original world line or not, the current Harry, the Ravenclaw Harry, can still see his emotional side. Last school year, he broke into the bathroom and tried to save Draco, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were surrounded by the troll. In the secret passage facing the corridor on the 4th floor, Harry insisted on facing Voldemort alone. At the Black Mansion, Draco and the others went to the place where Voldemort hid the locket. If it weren't for the fragments of Voldemort's soul and the influence of Ron and others, he would probably be like Hermione, waving between Gryffindor and Ravenclaw. This witchcraft is totally incompatible with me. Ron shook his head self-awarely. He planned to use his magic to make money, so he didn't need to learn occlumency. He also knew about legilimency. Should ask Ryan on weekdays. Study, Quidditch, and Ryan's training all occupied his energy, and in the past 3 months, he also had to drink potions to transform his blood. If occlumency was added to the mix, he didn't know if he could do both. You and Ron can try the steps before bed. Ryan looked at Ron and Harry and said, by the way, can my emotion magic only be added to the lighting spell? I have thought about adding it to the mist spell, so that my mist with my memories and emotions attached to it can be stored and then sold. The buyer just needs to inhale the mist through his nose. After listening to Ryan's advice, Ron immediately put the brain block technique aside and asked about his business. As long as you don't use offensive spells like fire and weather spells, you can heal it back to its original state. So, on the 3rd day after the Christmas holiday, in the courtyard of Hogwarts Castle, Fred and George stood on a wooden table made of chairs, holding a few glass bottles filled with mist in their hands. Everyone, come here and take a look. This is a revised version of the magic that knocked us to the ground by Ron a few days ago. It allows you to experience the journey of the Savior team, one of the 3 Musketeers, Ron Weasley, who is also our brother, into the Forbidden Forest. You can also eat as much as you want without feeling guilty. You deserve it. Fred and George shouted loudly. The audience was already full of curious students. Ron and Harry were standing not far away, watching this scene. Ron, you didn't go by yourself. Neville looked at Ron in disbelief. This is his product, his magic, and he could have been in the spotlight by doing so, but he didn't even go. Is this still Ron? Hogwarts by selling the gadgets they made themselves. It's not that I can't go, but I'd rather spend my time producing products. Ron tried his best to remain calm and control his peripheral vision from glancing towards the center of the crowd. In fact, he didn't say what he really meant. He really wanted to stand there, even if he didn't make any money in the early stages. But his two elder brothers have no moral principles. He had no choice but to let Fred and George go on stage to sell it. Is that so? Ron, please leave me some of the smoke from your food. I want to lose weight. Neville touched his pocket distressedly. All the gold galleons and silver sickles in it would probably be spent on Ron. I want it too. I want the memory of you breaking into the corridor on the 4th floor. I want to see Harry, exclaimed Anthony, Harry's die-hard fan. I say, although this thing has been examined by Professor Flitwick, what if, Justin, I don't know, and Ron, you've already asked Mr. Weasley to apply for a patent, Harry said sarcastically. Perhaps it was because he had been drinking potions for several days in a row, but when he was facing classmates he was not very familiar with, his words were always a little angry. Okay, Justin. Dudley held Justin's shoulders and said lightly. He gave Harry a long look and frowned. Professor Flitwick said it's okay. It's more useful than any registration. Ernie Macmillan, who had chatted with Harry and his friends in potions and flying classes, persuaded them. I have to go to class. Justin walked back to the classroom angrily. The Hufflepuffs walked into the castle. They were currently in Charms class and it was just a break. I finally understand why you wanted me to register, Harry. Obviously no one can imitate it. 2. We don't have classes though, but Ron, don't you think that there are some familiar-looking people in the crowd with Fred and George? Harry reminded tactfully. He noticed the witches that Ron was dating. Although he had never seen them with his own eyes, they were very good people. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399, Snape in Distress. Snape felt that the world was becoming more and more magical. First, Voldemort said he wanted to make peace with him, and then before they could discuss it clearly, the first Dark Lord was released from prison. What happened next was even more shocking. Voldemort died again. When did the Dark Lord become so easy to deal with? It's as easy to die as a big willy bug. What was even more surprising was that the person who did it was Dumbledore's mistress, Grindelwald. Furthermore, Snape also discovered that the new faces of Voldemort's men, the mysterious people who were chasing him, were actually his students. For the first time, Snape wondered if he had done something wrong. According to Slytherin education, they should follow the powerful party. And now on his side, he has Dumbledore and another Voldemort. You shouldn't have joined that loser. But apparently, his students considered pure blood theory more important than profit. The lies that the purebloods used to claim their nobility only deceived themselves. However, none of this matters. Even though he himself was unwilling to admit it. But he did care about the child Harry Potter. Recently, this boy started to distance himself from him for some reason. It was a feeling of wanting to be close to him, but for some reason not daring to look at him in the eye. This almost made him think that he was cursed by Voldemort and looked different. Several physical and verbal battles with Sirius, he ruled this out. He also suspected that Harry had dreamed about something, about him to be Voldemort's undercover agent, and that he hadn't dreamed the whole thing, about him falling out with Voldemort and being hunted down. But Hagrid's test and his observation of Harry proved that this guess was wrong. Why did Harry pretend to distance himself from him? What bothered him even more was that he didn't know why. So he developed the habit of pacing outside his potion storage room after dinner. This also made it inevitable for him to hear the whispers of Slytherin and Hufflepuff students outside the corridor. But he didn't care at all. But today was different. I heard something. Damn Ron Weasley. There's definitely something wrong with that thing about him. But Professor Flitwick has verified that there is no danger. He is also registered with the Ministry of Magic, head of Ravenclaw, and the Ministry of Magic, Humph. We all know that Ron's father is the director of the Department of Law Enforcement. Do you really believe that Ron Weasley can invent some magic? A fierce argument attracted Snape's attention. Ron Weasley, the name of Harry's friend, and the inventor of these two things, which seemed to be a completely incompatible combination to Snape, made Snape particularly curious. Could this have anything to do with Harry distancing himself from him? With such hope, Snape walked out of the corridor. Professor Snape. They were two Hufflepuff students, one named Ernie Macmillan and the other named Justin Finch Fletchley. What invention are you talking about? Snape said coldly. The two said hurriedly, fearing that Snape would become impatient. Justin, you seem to think there is a problem with this. Did you question it in front of Weasley? What was Harry's reaction? Snape rolled his eyes. Harry. He was totally different from usual, very impatient, and even mocked me. I think, just as Justin was about to continue, Snape's cold words interrupted him. Okay, you can go. Goodbye, Professor Snape. The two of them disappeared in a flash. Snape stood there, his pair of dark pupils like a train tunnel, filled with a coldness that kept people at a distance. Ron Weasley? Him? Invent. Harry's in a bad mood. There must be a secret here. Maybe this is why Harry's distancing himself from me. 8th floor. Dumbledore looked at Snape in front of him helplessly. So, you think there's something wrong with that kid, Ron? Of course. I know the Wheel Eye's magical abilities best, and you know why, Harry. There must be something strange here. I think this needs to be investigated carefully. Snape was like a child complaining to his parents. Severus, we all know what you're in for. It's the same reason as the argument you had with Sirius some time ago. That magic was examined by Phileas, and even I explored it out of curiosity. That's a simple cloud spell. The magic that is different from the fog spell is all because of Ron himself. Dumbledore rubbed his temple. Voldemort exerted through Harry. After all, Weasley sleeps next to Harry. Dumbledore's words made Snape think of something, and he began to chatter. That's impossible. Your skills may not be enough, but from my perspective, after Harry started school this year, his magic power was like a tomorrow. Voldemort could only rely on accidental accidents and the connection between him and Harry to temporarily connect. But if Voldemort wanted to take the initiative, his evil and broken soul would be unable to do it. As for weirdness, maybe there really is something about Harry. After the Christmas holiday, the holy, tomorrow-like magic in his eyes began to be restrained in my eyes, but it was not weakened, but strengthened. Perhaps Ron was infected by Harry's magic and discovered his own strengths. There was a hint of relief in Dumbledore's serious eyes. It won't do him any good. What's wrong with Harry? He himself is a miracle, even. In my original plan, I just wanted him to be an ordinary Hogwarts student and not tap into his huge potential, but I was wrong. The miraculous red spark, the magic phoenix, and the changes now all mean one thing. Everything about him has long been beyond my understanding, the existing magical field. At this point, Dumbledore sighed. What? Obscurus. A sharp roar came from Snape's mouth. Chapter 400, Eye of Narcissus. Tell me, what else did you do to Harry? The muscles on Snape's ginger face were tangled together, filled with murderous intent. He drew his birch wand and pointed it in Dumbledore's direction, as if he was about to stab it into Dumbledore's heart at any moment. You should know that the little wizards who are boarded by Momo Ran will not live past the age of 10. This was an accident. I never thought that Petunia would treat Harry like this. They seem to regard magic as an enemy that could hurt Harry, and they have been trying to drive magic out of Harry. By the time I discovered Harry had an Obscurus, it was too late. But fortunately, thanks to Lily's blessing, the Obscurus in Harry did not threaten his life. Instead, it became his strength. Dumbledore's eyes flashed with memories. So far so good. You shouldn't say it's okay when it comes to Harry. I thought this child would be safe under your arrangement, but it turns out to be just okay. Yes, it turned out great. But it was all caused by accident. What would happen to Harry without Lily's? A poor kid who won't even live to be 10 years old after defeating Voldemort. What can you do to save it? How many more crocodile tears will you shed in the end? When I was amazed by Harry's blessing magic last year, I didn't realize that behind the beautiful phoenix was the ugly Obscurus. Snape tried his best to remain calm, but his white knuckles revealed his unrest. Harry is the one predicted to have powers that Voldemort doesn't understand, and to defeat him. The prophecy made Harry a being comparable to Voldemort, with the potential to be an extraordinary wizard. You have to understand that I must give Harry to Petunia. Otherwise, Harry, as a Horcrux, will be defeated by Voldemort's evil side without Lily's blessing as a supportive blood relationship. And what was the result? A Harry with Voldemort's powers, or rather, a Harry possessed by Voldemort's mind. Dumbledore said it may be a little cruel, but it is the only option. The prophecy created Harry and also foreshadowed Harry's future. If he wasn't cruel, Harry would have faced death. If it were him before, facing Harry who was gradually losing control, he would try to stop him, or he would be afraid that Harry would become another Voldemort. Nor would he have resurrected a young Voldemort. But it's different now. The British wizarding world must change so as not to fall behind the world. The news of the wizards landing on the moon can be said to have eliminated his stubbornness, forcing everything to develop according to his plan and avoid sacrifice. Then why did Harry suddenly distance himself from me? Does he have the same bullshit vision you mentioned as you do? Can you see the Death Eater mark on me? Or can you see the aura of dark magic caused by my obsession with dark magic? Snape asked unwillingly after sighing. Perhaps you should wash your hair, Dumbledore asked, trying to lighten the mood. Tear into pieces. A cold voice came from the principal's office. It was 11:10, at the Quidditch pitch. Snape was sitting at the back of the 10 stands. Would not be so many people, just like the previous match. The students should have been distracted by the magic items that were transformed from Muggle items. But he made a mistake, and it seemed like the entire school had descended upon the stands surrounding the Quidditch pitch. He has discovered the real reason for his mistake from the conversations around him. It had been a while since those Muggle items became popular, and the recent Christmas holiday had already allowed them to see more creatively modified items on the streets and in the village. With transforming items in a Quidditch game is undoubtedly a good way for them to pass the time. And this game also includes Harry Potter, the most famous student in the school. Dudley Dursley, a broomstick destroyer who became an excellent goalkeeper. Cedric Diggory, like Harry, is the young captain of the Quidditch team and very handsome. This made Snape feel deflated. He came here today for one thing, to cast a magic spell, the Eye of Narcissus. Narcissus originated from Greek mythology and was the son of the river god Cephissus and the water nymph Liliope. He was a handsome young man with a very delicate appearance, but he was not attracted by any girl. He only admired his own reflection in the water. Eventually, he died of depression and self-pity. Turned into a daffodil, still staying by the water, watching over its own shadow. Even though this magic is the same as Narcissus's, one can only see oneself after using it to the Prince family. It has very high requirements and its function is to see oneself in the memory of others. Moreover, its principle is different from that of telepathy. It uses oneself as the negative pole of a magnet, and the self in other people's memories as the positive pole, which attracts each other. But this magic also has a weakness, that is, the pre-swing is too long and cannot be interrupted, and the other party must really care about you and have you in their heart. Perhaps it was through this magic that his mother saw the love his father had for her beneath his violence and foul language that she had always. Snape shook his head. The most important thing is that for this magic to work, the other party needs to be busy with other things and not notice the caster, otherwise the other party will notice something is wrong or interrupt the connection. This is also why Snape didn't use this magic in potions class, because that was his class, and it wouldn't be good if he kept staring at Harry motionlessly in the dormitory all day again. So, in the stands, which should be small in number, he had just enough time to wrap himself in his robe and observe secretly. But no one expected that there would be so many people now. There was no other choice. Snape had to give up and eat directly. And now, he was using this magic on Harry Potter, and had been using it for almost 10 minutes. Then, in a corner that no one was paying attention to, a tall figure in a black robe was muttering something, with a blue light emitting from his eyes. Suddenly lowered his head. At this moment, strange images appeared in Snape's mind. That was Hogwarts, but the castle was empty at this moment, filled with spider webs and bats. Outside the window, the blood moon was shining high, leaden clouds were rolling, and thunder and lightning were roaring. Snape looked at all this strange and profound stuff from what should be Harry's perspective, and came to the astronomy tower. What greeted his eyes was a scene that Snape could never have imagined in his dreams. At the top of the astronomical tower, where there should have been an open space, there was a huge coffin. Inside the coffin, 2 pairs of red eyeballs flashed the same light as a blood moon. He slowly approached with his wand, and the figure in the coffin gradually became clear. It was himself. He had canine teeth and a pale face. In his arms lay the person he would never forget in his life, Lily. Lily Evans. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.